Hello everyone, this is Fanfic Audiobook. Here you find original fan made audio stories.
Zeus's kindness, higher than the heavens. Part 1. Azure brilliant galaxy, capital of the world, star of Olympus. Atop the towering holy mountain of Olympus. Inside the magnificent and ornate palace. It has been over 1,000 years since I guided humanity into the interstellar age. A broad and mighty, majestic figure surrounded by lightning stood there. In his hand was the great thunder, capable of burning through the world, erupting with astonishing heat. Behind him stood a majestic true body as vast as a galaxy. He exuded an indescribable majesty and nobility. Zeus looked at the azure brilliant galaxy in the distance and murmured to himself, "The world is vast and full of wonders, I actually became machine god Zeus." Compared to the palace on the mountain, the holy mountain beneath his feet, and the azure brilliant galaxy, he was as small as a grain of sand. But his figure was hazy and grand, and the blinding lightning made it impossible to look at him directly. His pale hair and beard showed no signs of aging, instead, they made his face appear even more majestic and holy. His eyes, flashing with lightning, looked into the deep universe, recalling his journey to this world. From the beginning, becoming machine god Zeus and forcibly unifying the Olympian gods to resist the invasion of the wandering star vanguards. To defeating Gaia and Alaya, guiding my subjects to overcome the calamities of the moon's coral and the land of steel to move toward the interstellar age. Walking this path, I have crossed countless hardships and obstacles, and now a new hindrance lies before me. Zeus's gaze was like a torch, his tone carrying a hint of conceit, but more of it was filled with emotion. Grasping the incredibly powerful great thunder in his hand, Zeus whispered with some regret and unwillingness, "Unfortunately, it seems this time I really won't be able to cross it." Zeus, who had led his subjects into the interstellar age, soon encountered the predator of civilizations in the universe, the wandering star Vanguard, the home star of the predatory umbral star, the star of tears. The machine god true body, which was incomparably powerful on Earth, was like a tiny grain of sand when placed on a grand cosmic scale. The unified machine god true body that had once defeated the wandering star vanguards was shattered without surprise, and the human civilization under Zeus's leadership faced a world-ending crisis at that time. Having lost their machine god true bodies, Zeus and the Olympian gods could finally truly understand human joys and sorrows, doubling their power as a result. However, the power of emotions was ultimately limited. The powerful star of tears might not even be defeated by the home star of the Olympian gods' true bodies. Even with their power doubled, they still couldn't contend with the mighty star of tears. The gods and brave warriors charging at the front fell one by one, and in the end, only the strongest king of gods, Zeus, remained standing on the battlefield. Zeus couldn't help but lament. To defeat the star of tears now, he had to integrate human power even more deeply, and having lost his machine god true body actually made it easier to integrate human power. Zeus transformed into the great father god, gathering all the masculine power of human civilization into himself. At that moment, all the sons, husbands, and fathers of the human world were just one person, and that was the great father god, Zeus. The single strike of the great thunder, which gathered the symbols of all masculine power in the human world, pierced through the entire star of tears, shooting it down. After acquiring the technology of the Star of Tears, human civilization's development advanced by leaps and bounds, reaching the era of the Azure Brilliant Galaxy in just over 100 years. In that great war, men either died on the battlefield or sacrificed their lives to Zeus to defeat the Star of Tears. At this point, Zeus was the only male left in the civilization. Human civilization could no longer give birth to males. A civilization that had lost its males could not achieve the union of yin and yang, and thus new life could not be born. During this process, Zeus experimented with countless methods, such as artificially creating male clones. But Zeus's powerful masculine power was like a black hole, pulling all masculine power toward himself. All male clones were reduced to ashes in less than a breath, and the masculine power returned to Zeus. And if he were to create female androids, wanting them to have their own unique souls required carving them out from existing feminine power, otherwise, they couldn't produce souls or consciousness. This was undoubtedly drinking poison to quench thirst rather than creating true new life. The world had no woman who could withstand union and procreation with the great father god Zeus. If he wanted to gather the feminine power of all humanity, then human civilization would eventually only be left with Zeus and the goddess who held that feminine power, which was not what Zeus or human civilization wanted to see. It's just that they can't give birth, not that they can't. Now, all Zeus could do was seek additional feminine power from outside the world to achieve the harmony of yin and yang for this world. Today, as Zeus once again commanded his reconstructed machine god True Body to attack the world's crystal wall. Ding! The Dimensional Exchange Guild invites you to join. Do you accept? Without any warning, a cold, mechanical voice suddenly rang out. It didn't echo in cosmic space, but in Zeus's mind. This couldn't help but surprise Zeus. Zeus's pupils constricted. As the terrifyingly extreme Great Thunder surged, the space of the entire star sector collapsed. In the universe, countless thunderclaps erupted, flashing with blinding lightning. As the supreme god of the azure brilliant galaxy and the collective embodiment of human civilization's masculine power, Zeus's strength was unparalleled. Dimensional Exchange Guild. Lightning flashed in his pupils. Shining with fearsome symbols, stars flickered in and out of existence, and eras shifted. He swept through every inch and corner of the surging, silent cosmic space, but found nothing. Zeus used his machine god True Body to perform sensory deduction. Despite constant sensing and extreme deduction, he actually came up empty-handed. I actually cannot deduce it, cannot find it. But soon, Zeus couldn't help but shudder as long-forgotten memories surfaced in his mind. Before he transmigrated, he used to frequent various novel websites and had read no fewer than 100 novels. He was naturally not unfamiliar with things like a dimensional exchange guild. Back then, before he transmigrated, he had even fantasized about how great it would be if he could be favored by these systems. He murmured with some emotion, interesting. With my current computing power, I can calculate an entire galaxy, yet I can't even find out where this thing came from. Zeus's eyes flickered. But he wasn't particularly wary, instead, he laughed. Perhaps this dimensional exchange guild really could bring him a surprise and break through his current predicament. It might even allow human civilization to climb to higher peaks. I hope this so-called dimensional exchange guild is truly useful. Zeus responded calmly, except. Counting it up, it had been over 1,000 years since he came to the type moon world, and the world-ending crises in his remembrance had driven him every moment. As he crossed crisis after crisis, his own sense of fun had long since faded, and he spent every day thinking about how to solve problems. Now, this dimensional exchange chat group could be considered a fulfillment of his old wish. Ding. Please set your nickname in the hyperdimensional guild. Future Eternal Calamity. Future Eternal Calamity, King of Gods, God among Gods. The current Zeus had already surpassed the original machine god. He wanted to keep moving forward, to move forward forever, to achieve a true future eternal calamity. Ding. Future Eternal Calamity has joined the Dimensional Exchange Guild. Inside the Dimensional Exchange Guild, the chat was in full swing. General Fu, Jr. Your situation is similar to mine, now you know what to do, right? Truly arrogant. I fully understand what you mean, Senior. Now, I am going to become a god. As soon as Zeus entered, he saw such an explosive discussion topic. Just as he was about to lurk and observe, he was at ed. Old Man Huang, it's a newcomer. Newcomer, at Future Eternal Calamity, let me tell you, everyone who joins this chat group is a chosen one, a protagonist of their world, destined to save the world. I know of a world that is perfect for you to show off your divine power. King of the Trash Can, nickname is looking for a scapegoat again. Newcomer, don't believe him. Back when I wasn't even born yet, I was almost tricked by him. Old Man Huang, how can you say I'm tricking people? My place perfectly satisfies the wish to be a savior and be revered by 10,000 people. King of the Trash Can, that world of yours is practically a cesspool, what kind of things are even in there? Old Man Huang, don't you like rummaging through trash cans? My world perfectly matches your hobby. King of the Trash Can, I like rummaging through trash cans, not being a maggot in a sea of filth. Also, newcomer, putting aside this nickname, this exchange guild, which we usually call a chat group, is indeed very miraculous. It might actually be able to grant your wish. Pink Fatty, newcomer, tell us your wish. This beautiful fairy lady might be able to help you achieve it, you know. Seeing characters he was familiar with from his past life communicating with him through this chat group, Zeus was filled with emotion. Future Eternal Calamity, I hope to find a woman who can bear my children. Old Man Huang, come to my place, I will definitely make sure your genes are well continued. King of the Trash Can, nickname, get lost. Pink Fatty, how direct. No one can refuse Gwent, such blunt language. I usually say things like, I want to find an eternal love who can spend the rest of my life with me. Future eternal calamity. I have many eternal loves, but none can bear my offspring. My power is too strong. Their strength is insufficient to withstand the consumption of bearing my child. No one can refuse Gwent. Many. How enviable. Please give me a bit more Saint Quartz. You're a sorceress Pilar and an old John. What are you envious of? At this moment, 2400 arrived. King of the trash can. It's time for the daily superstition moment again. This time, I definitely won't lose at Al_1's daily luck. Al_1s, at King of the trash can. Your luck for today is bad. Points gained from check-in. 1. King of the trash can. Pain, so much pain. Why am I so unlucky today? Please give me a bit more Saint Quartz. Ha ha ha, a mere African dares to howl wildly here. Let me show you the hand of a king of luck. At Al_1s daily luck. Al_1s, at please give me a bit more Saint Quartz. Your luck for today is bad. Points gained from check-in. 1. Please give me a bit more Saint Quartz. Ah. Why? King of the trash can, still laughing at me. You're an unlucky fool too. I bet your recent gotcha pulls are going to be off banner again, right? Finally, everyone else also conducted their daily luck checks for the day. Until only Zeus was left. Pink Fatty. At future eternal calamity, quick, quick, quick. Come and try it. These points can be exchanged for various items in the guild mall. Maybe there's something that can help you. Please give me a bit more Saint Quartz. That's right, newcomer, let me see your luck. Hearing the group members' words, Zeus was also eager to try. Future eternal calamity. Let me give it a try too, at Al_1s daily luck. Al_1s, at future eternal calamity, your luck for today is great fortune. Points 1000. Please give me a bit more Saint Quartz, gr. Great fortune. Big shot, I beg you, please pull for me, this is the request of a lifetime. Old man Huang, as expected, you are the child of destiny. Hurry up and save the world. King of the trash can, I have a feeling that I'm going to be born today. Please give me some Saint Quartz. A group member I've been chatting with hasn't even been born yet. Pink Fatty, quick, 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 turn on the camera. Let's witness this historic moment together. From the video's perspective, a purple-haired woman who looked like a spider and a silver-haired little loli stuffed a powerful energy core into the chest of Stell, king of the trash can. Stell's body grew rapidly, and just as she was about to open her eyes, the two of them were about to leave. Hurry up, we don't have much time left. Wait a moment, I still have a few words to say to her. Listen to me. Because Stell fell unconscious, the live broadcast was cut off. In a daze, Stell heard a voice. How is there still someone here? When Stell opened her eyes again, she saw a pink-haired girl shaking her desperately. The two people from before were already gone. Dan Heng, she's awake. Quick, help her leave with us. The Antimatter Legion will be here any second. Seeing two strangers trying to take her somewhere else. Stell was very confused and asked, who are you? Where is this? This is Herta Space Station. It was attacked by the Stellarn Hunters a while ago, and it's very dangerous here right now. Can you stand up now? Follow us and leave immediately. Just then, a Void Ranger smashed through the door on the other side, suddenly attacking from behind March 7th. With a wave of her hand, a baseball bat appeared in Stell's hand. With another swing, the attacking Void Ranger was smashed to pieces. Seeing this, Dan Heng and March 7th immediately realized that this young girl was no ordinary person, but the situation was critical and they couldn't worry about it too much. Let's go. While the three were running, inside the chat group. King of the trash can, is anyone there? Help. Talk about bad luck. No wonder I drew a misfortune reading today. I'm being hunted right after being born. Pink Fatty. What's wrong, girl? Weren't you just born today? King of the trash can. I don't know what's going on either. Anyway, can someone help me? Please give me some Saint Quartz. We all just joined the group a few days ago. Even if we wanted to help, crossing worlds costs 1000 points, and we don't have enough. King of the trash can. Oh right, at future eternal calamity, didn't you get 1000 points from checking in? Please, come help me. I'll definitely reward you handsomely afterward. Pink Fatty. If you don't have combat power, you can also lend the points to me. I should be able to help her. King of the trash can. Yes, yes, yes. If that doesn't work, please lend the points to someone else. I'll definitely pay them back later. Zeus thought about the background of Stell's world and felt that the power of an eon might help him solve his problems, so he decided to personally go to the Honkai, Star Rail world. Future eternal calamity. No need, I'll come myself. At Al_1s, purchase world crossing permissions. I'm going to the king of the trash cans world. Al_1s, at future eternal calamity, world crossing permissions have been purchased for you. Would you like to cross over now? Future eternal calamity. Yes. Following Zeus's answer, a space-time vortex appeared in front of him, and Zeus strode inside. At this time, Stell, who was fleeing with Dan Heng in March 7th, encountered a four-legged elite monster that was clearly much stronger than a normal Void Ranger. Just then, Zeus emerged from the space-time vortex. With majestic white hair and a beard, and endless lightning flashing in his pupils, Stell knew at a glance that he was powerful. Seeing the suddenly appearing Zeus, Dan Heng immediately became alert. Who are you? How did you suddenly appear here? Compared to the unconscious Stell, Zeus, who had come here of his own volition and clearly possessed extraordinary strength, reached the peak of suspicion in Dan Heng's eyes. Seeing the atmosphere suddenly become tense, Stell quickly explained, he's the reinforcement I called for. Given that she had been fighting the Stellar Hunters Void Rangers alongside them all the way, Dan Heng chose to temporarily accept the suddenly appearing Zeus. Zeus raised his right hand and extended his index finger. In an instant, a bolt of lightning pierced through the Stellar Devastator, Trampler. After penetrating the monster, the lightning didn't stop for a moment, passing through layer after layer of the space station's walls and flying into the depths of the universe. On the Shenzhou Luofu, a shooting star suddenly streaked across the night sky. Ordinary residents of the Shenzhou took the opportunity to make wishes, but the Divination Commission was thrown into a frenzy, as this so-called shooting star was completely absent from their calculations. In Penacony, the Halavian siblings each had their own thoughts as they watched the shooting star streak across the horizon. Seeing the incredibly powerful lightning emitted by Zeus, Stell was extremely excited and cheered as she ran to his side. You're too strong, big boss. I'm counting on you. From now on, if you tell me to go east, I'll never go west. Seeing Zeus's overwhelming power, the wariness in Dan Heng's eyes grew even deeper. March 7th noticed Dan Heng's gloomy face, crossed her arms, and said to him, someone is helping us, and you're still unhappy. I don't know what his goal is. You should know that what's free is always the most expensive. Oh, don't worry about it so much. Getting through the current crisis is what's most important. With Zeus's help, the three of them carved through the enemies like cutting melons and vegetables, eventually meeting up with the others on the space station. Seeing Dan Heng and March 7th return safely, everyone was very happy. Then they noticed Stell and Zeus standing beside March 7th. And these two are. Hearing Himeko ask about the origins of Stell and Zeus, March 7th excitedly introduced them. This girl is called Stell. Dan Heng and I found her on our way to meet up here. As for this gentleman, Stell called him over midway to help us. What was his name again? Right, I still don't know your name. I have many names, but the one I use most often is Zeus. Zeus. Hearing this name, a massive wave of shock surged in Welt's heart. If you truly are that legendary lord I know from my memories, please tell me, why have you come here? Oh, he already said he came to help Stell. The carefree March 7th and Stell completely failed to notice Zeus's true purpose. I come from another world. To deal with an apocalyptic crisis, my civilization used extraordinary means. Now, because of the backlash from those means, my civilization has fallen into a slow death. I came to this world to seek a solution. Is that so? I thought you were just here to help me. Hearing that Zeus had something he sought, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Asta, as the lead researcher of the space station, stepped forward. Mr. Zeus, please help us deal with the invaders on the space station. Afterward, I will do my best to help you explore a solution. Just then, a roar that echoed through the space station came from outside, and everyone hurried to check. It's the Doomsday Beast, the Stellar Hunter's anti-planet biological weapon. Just as everyone was picking up their weapons to fight the Doomsday Beast, Zeus raised his right hand. Lightning flickered in his eyes as bolts of electricity gathered in his palm. As Zeus's right hand swung down abruptly, the condensed lightning instantly dispersed, spreading throughout the entire space station. In an instant, the Stellar Hunters' forces across the station were either blasted through the head or had their chests blown wide open. The energy core in the chest of the Doomsday Beast, which had just been a formidable foe to everyone, was pierced by Zeus's lightning. It fell straight from the sky, crashing onto the space station's platform. The crisis of the Stellar Hunters' invasion was thus resolved by Zeus in the blink of an eye. As the first cheer rang out, a joyful atmosphere quickly spread, and everyone was immersed in the joy of victory. Zeus knew that Asta was not the true master of the space station. He was waiting for the person who might actually solve his problem, the emanator of erudition, Herta. Zeus didn't care about Asta's promise. His only request to her was to have Herta come and meet him. Some time later, Herta returned to the space station. Asta told Herta the whole story. A life form that had crossed over from another universe undoubtedly piqued Herta's interest. Without Asta needing to say more, Herta naturally agreed to meet Zeus, in the guest lounge. Having learned of Zeus's strength, Herta used her true body to meet him as a sign of sincerity. Sensing Herta's power, Zeus judged that her strength was similar to the star of tears he had encountered years ago. In contrast, Herta felt that the energy within Zeus was infinite and bottomless. Of the people Herta had seen, the only one who could possibly rival Zeus was perhaps that big mechanical head Nous. For someone of your level to have an unsolvable problem, tell me about it. I'm quite curious about your dilemma. After all, sometimes the question is more precious than the answer. I am currently unable to produce offspring. Please help me bear a child. Gifted since childhood with wisdom far beyond ordinary people, Herta had spent her whole life diving into the ocean of knowledge. Even if someone wanted to pursue her, suitors were no different from talking monkeys in her eyes, while geniuses of the same level were all obsessed with endless knowledge. This was the first time in her life she had heard such blunt words from someone of the same or even higher level. For a moment, Herta was somewhat at a loss. For the first time in her life, she felt her heart skip a beat. That's quite a blunt pursuit, but it's not like I can't give you a chance. After sensing her accelerated heartbeat, Herta immediately realized something was wrong. Especially when Zeus spoke just now, Herta keenly felt a massive fluctuation in her emotions. As the price for this first date, I want to know what you just used to affect me. I couldn't observe a single trace of it. Rather than saying I used something to affect you, it's more accurate to say I slightly unsealed the restraints on myself. Zeus began to explain to Herta why he was able to cause her emotional fluctuations. To ensure the conversation went smoothly just now, I slightly unsealed my eros. If I were to use terms closer to human science, it would be pheromones. But unlike those, eros is one of the components that make up Zeus, representing my lust and passion, while also being able to affect those around me like pheromones. Herta's interest was piqued by Zeus's words. Your pheromones aren't a product of bodily hormones, but one of your core components. How interesting. Then what about the other parts of your body? Lady, our transaction is already complete. If you want to know more, you must also show some sincerity. Hearing this, Herta found herself in a difficult position. If it were an ordinary person, a curio, a scientific achievement, or just a large sum of credits would suffice. But before her was Zeus, who could stand shoulder to shoulder with an eon. Herta truly couldn't imagine what he needed. My request is simple. Please help me propagate my lineage and bear a child. Hearing this request again, Herta felt a fierce struggle within her. Ultimately, her intense curiosity won out. Fine. I agree, but please give me some time to prepare first. And before that, please answer my questions about your body. Zeus told Herta about his legendary life. In that battle, my true body was shattered by the Star of Tears. With the faith of the civilization, I reconstructed my physical body using ether. The core of my true body transformed into phanes, lighting the spark of reason, the desires of all living beings transformed into Métis, clashing to create thought and wisdom, the masculine power transformed into Eros, igniting the fire of passion, the subconscious transformed into Pan, the wildness that encompasses all, noble thoughts transformed into Niodesis, understanding benevolence and morality, and finally, the true self, representing thunder and the father, Zeus, embraced everything. Then why did you seal Eros? Zeus told Herta about the predicament he faced, and she finally understood the true meaning behind his phrase, please help me propagate my lineage and bear a child. Reproduction is the method by which a civilization continues. The wildness represented by Pan makes me want to sow offspring, but my powerful masculine nature makes it difficult to actually conceive a child. When I realized this, my Pan fell into a frenzy, and Eros is precisely the catalyst for Pan. To suppress Pan, I had to seal Eros as well. Herta keenly realized that if Pan's needs weren't met, he would go mad, and if Eros remained sealed for too long, it would also spiral out of control. To prevent Eros from going out of control like Pan, my wife would help me solve the issue of Eros periodically. Under normal circumstances, the prerequisite for bearing offspring is the ritual of blending water and milk, so it was only natural for others to perceive Zeus's words as a straightforward courtship. Can you fully demonstrate your eros in front of me? Although she knew it was a misunderstanding, Ms. Herta had already made up her mind. Even if she had to become Zeus's wife, she would obtain that rare knowledge. Are you sure? I'm afraid when the time comes. No more words. Come. Zeus slowly released the seal on Eros. His majestic face gradually became handsome, the beard vanished from his face, and a smile appeared on his previously expressionless face. Zeus stood up from his seat and arrived in front of Ms. Herta in one step, pinning her onto the sofa. One hand tilted Ms. Herta's chin, while the other stroked her thigh. Oh, beautiful lady, your deep eyes are like the endless starry sky, making me fall into them. Your beauty is no less than that of Aphrodite, as dazzling as the stars in the sky. These legs wrapped in black silk are so soft and delicate that I can never touch them enough. Ms. Herta was startled by Zeus's sudden transformation. Is this your true nature? It's hard to imagine how you maintained that previous appearance. As Zeus unscrupulously released his eros, Ms. Herta was soon teased into a state of excitement by Zeus's caresses and passionate words. As Zeus lowered his head, the two began to kiss passionately. When Zeus's hands started moving up and down, wanting to take off Ms. Herta's clothes, she suddenly pushed him away. What's wrong? Didn't you agree before? Ms. Herta swallowed hard, the blush on her face unable to dissipate for a long time. Her hair was a bit messy, and the base of her stockings was slightly damp. Wait a moment. I'm not rejecting you, I'm just not ready yet. Seeing Ms. Herta's shy appearance, Zeus knew that getting her was only a matter of time. Ms. Herta was very satisfied with Zeus. He possessed both majestic, serious reliability and frivolous, gorgeous romance. His status was incredibly noble, and his knowledge was profound. He could be said to be her ideal partner. Since she had already decided to become his wife in the previous conversation, Ms. Herta would definitely not go back on her word. It was just that for this first time in her life, she wanted to savor it and prepare properly. Thus, the two left the room. Zeus resealed Rose and returned to his majestic appearance. With her clothes in disarray and a blushing face, Ms. Herta hurried back to her laboratory, while Zeus met up with the Astral Express group without changing his expression. Why didn't Ms. Herta come along? She clearly said before that the stellarn inside my body is very special and wanted me to help her test the simulated universe. While pouting and complaining that Ms. Herta hadn't come to see them off, Stel noticed that something was wrong with Asta, who had come to see them off. Asta, what's wrong? Are you feeling unwell? Is there something wrong with your body? I'm fine, don't worry. Asta, who came to see them off, had a flushed face just like Ms. Herta's. Zeus naturally knew why. When he and Ms. Herta were communicating intimately, Ms. Herta had only chosen a reception room without general surveillance and hadn't specifically bypassed Asta's surveillance range. In short, space station permissions were Ms. Herta greater than Asta greater than central control. Ms. Herta only bypassed central control. Unsurprisingly, the intimate interaction between himself and Ms. Herta had been seen in its entirety by Asta. Zeus's eros had undoubtedly affected her as well. Coupled with witnessing Zeus's heroic posture when he defeated the Stellarn hunters with one blow at the space station, falling in love was quite normal. Seeing Asta's flushed face and thinking of Zeus's great reputation, Walt instantly realized why Ms. Herta hadn't come, thinking to himself, as expected of Zeus. After a series of exchanges, Zeus also decided to follow the Astral Express on their journey, inside the chat group. Detected that the first dimensional channel in the group has been opened. The chat group is upgrading, increasing the number of members and opening the sales system. Monaco Show joined the chat group. 17-year-old beautiful girl forever joined the chat group. This land joined the chat group. There was a bit of a problem on old man Huang's side. Without his warm hospitality, scamming, the three newcomers all tacitly chose to lurk. Really arrogant. I've been reorganizing the band lately. Why do I feel like the band members look at me with strange eyes? No one can refuse Gwent. How strange. They can't all want to grind with you, can they? Really arrogant. I'm not joking. I really feel like they want to do me, especially my Aunt Uaya, she doesn't even try to hide it. What should I do? After saying goodbye to the Astral Express group, Asta also blushed and hurried back to her room. She took off her slightly damp panties and performed the ancient human exercise engraved in jeans using one hand. No one knew what happened in Asta's room, only Ms. Herta knew that Asta changed her bedsheets that day. Note: I deleted Arlen. This character doesn't have much of a role and is annoying to keep, so I erased him. Ah, Mr. Zeus. Ms. Herta, who had just finished her business, couldn't find Asta. Using a tracking device to locate Asta's room, she heard a soft moan and could only helplessly return. At this time, Ruan May's avatar flashed in Ms. Herta's communication device. It's rare for her to take the initiative to message me and so urgently. The Star Crusher Swarm King that Ruan May had placed at the bottom of the space station became restless when it sensed Zeus releasing the Seal of Eros. A lightning mark appeared on its blue shell, and ownership of the propagation path was slowly shifting. Noticing this, Ruan May combined it with the recent information about the space station being attacked but quickly pacified, and guessed that something big must have happened at the space station during that time. Meanwhile, on the train, under Stell's explanation, everyone gradually let down their guard against Zeus. Especially Welt. When he heard about Zeus's mechanical true body, he was particularly enthusiastic toward Zeus, making Zeus, who had sealed Eros, a bit at a loss. Suddenly, the train jolted violently, followed by an alarm. After a while, Conductor Pom Pom gathered everyone. Because the star rail is blocked, we are forced to make an emergency stop at a nearby planet, recorded as Gerilo V, for an indefinite period until the star rail is restored. Himeko first explained to Zeus and Stell in detail what a stellarn is, and then explained the reason for this emergency stop. According to my guess, there is likely a stellarn on Gerilo V, which is the core reason for the star rail blockage. We need to clear it to continue. This time, it'll be up to you three little ones. Welt and I will watch you shine from the train. As for Mr. Zeus, please do as you wish. I also want to go down and take a look. As for the stellarn issue, Stell, I'll leave it to you. Zeus could easily see that Himeko and Welt wanted to take the opportunity to train the three youngsters, so he didn't make a fool of himself by insisting on solving it himself. Big boss, just watch. Stell rolled up her sleeves, picked up her baseball bat, gave it a twirl, and shouldered it, full of curiosity about Gerilo V. Lord Zeus, let's have a talk. The three sat on the sofa. Himeko picked up her coffee cup and took a small sip. I don't know where you come from, but I can see that you were full of goodwill toward us from the moment we met. May I ask why? In fact, had Ms. Herta not requested Zeus to unseal Eros herself and been willing to become Zeus's wife, Zeus would not have received any substantial reward for helping the space station repel the stellarn hunters and defeat the Doomsday Beast. No need for many words. All humans are my children. I am the father of all humanity. It is only natural for a father to love his children. For children in danger, a father's help requires no reward. It only says he doesn't seek reward when they are in danger. But in cases like Ms. Herta's, where there was no danger, he would still seek reward based on the principle of equal exchange when a request is made. This is normal education for children. In the eyes of Zeus, who had acquired all the masculine power of human civilization, the three roles of daughter, wife, and mother were not in conflict. Treating all humans as children did not prevent him from uniting with them. On the way to unifying Earth, even Tiamat, who treated Zeus as a child, could become Zeus's wife. After hearing Zeus's words, Welt was lost in thought. Meanwhile, Himeko continued to ask about Zeus's origins, and Zeus told Himeko everything about his past. Overall, he is the Orphic Zeus, with a range of control spanning the entire galaxy. His strength increases with the prosperity of the human civilizations under his rule, Welt thought to himself. One more question, it might be a bit offensive, but I want to know if the unusual states of Ms. Herta and Asta when we left were caused by some special means you used. Speaking of Zeus, besides his unparalleled power and his representative great thunder that could burn through the universe, the most noteworthy thing was his endless romantic debts as the king of gods. To be honest, even Ms. Herta, a member of the Genius Society and an emanator of erudition, and Asta, the young lady of the Interastral Peace Corporation, couldn't resist Zeus's charm. If he wanted to, perhaps all the women on the train would never have peace again. That was not intentional on my part. All the consequences were their own choices. Of course, since they chose me, I will take responsibility as a husband. Since the biggest problem was resolved, the atmosphere among the three was no longer as tense as at the beginning. The three chatted happily before Zeus left the Astral Express for Gerilo V. Gerilo V. After meeting Kokolia, the three youngsters were undoubtedly backstabbed and fled to the lower part the next day. At this time, Zeus, who had left the Astral Express, also landed on Gerilo V. Upon descending to Gerilo V, Zeus scanned all of Belobog. In the process, he saw warriors who were unafraid of death on the front lines and children full of hope for the future in Belobog. Of course, there were also some unpleasant things, such as some nobles who still lived in luxury and dissipation in the rear despite the tense war on the front lines, a classic example of the front being tight while the rear was feasting. After landing, Zeus casually called down a few bolts of lightning outside the city. The phenomenon of thunder on a clear day was very rare. Coupled with the three people who claimed to be visitors from beyond the sky earlier, Jeopard, who had taken over as the leader of the Iron Guard, was ordered to personally lead a team to investigate. In the outskirts, Jeopard saw Zeus on the snow at a glance. His snow-white beard and hair, along with his majestic face, showed he was no ordinary person. You've come. Seeing Jeopard arrive, Zeus, who was admiring the snow, turned around. Those bolts of lightning were your doing, weren't they? Unlike the three youngsters, Zeus's arrival gave Jeopard a great sense of pressure. Someone who could command the power of lightning to such an extent was definitely no ordinary pathstrider. Take me to see Cocolia. Even though he had received Cocolia's order to arrest the visitors from beyond the sky, and Zeus was very likely an associate of the previous three, Jeopard still chose to comply with Zeus's request and decided to take him to see the Supreme Guardian. To be honest, when Cocolia first met the trio of the main group, besides Dan Heng being a bit more mature, March 7th was silly, and the protagonist's love for rummaging through trash cans made them look like they had mental issues in the eyes of a normal person. No normal leader could believe these three could save Belobog. If Himeko had started with an orbital cannon or Welt had conjured a black hole, maybe Cocolia would have believed them. To avoid alarming the public, Jeopard alone led Zeus, who had changed his appearance, into Belobog. Although he had scanned all of Belobog, Zeus still preferred to listen to humans tell their own stories of their city and history, just as a father likes to listen to a young child describe an imaginary world. This statue is in memory of Supreme Guardian Primia, a spiritual symbol of the people of Belobog overcoming the winter and the severe cold. Under Jeopard's introduction, the two arrived at Clippeth Fort, where the Supreme Guardian governed and lived. Arriving at Clippeth Fort, the guards at the door didn't dare to stop them when they saw it was Jeopard. After entering Clippeth Fort, under Jeopard's guidance, they climbed the stairs one by one and arrived at a large door at the highest point. Zeus's gaze pierced through the thick door, seeing only a woman like a noble lady with golden hair and gorgeous clothes talking to herself at a desk, her emotions very irritable. Jeopard knocked on the door. Who is it? It's me, Jeopard, Supreme Guardian. Someone wishes to see you. After Cocolia calmed her emotions. Come in. Jeopard and Zeus walked into Cocolia's office. He is the reason for the thunder on a clear day on the snow plains outside the city. Jeopard nodded. Yes, Supreme Guardian, and he is a companion of those three visitors from beyond the sky. Guessing that Zeus possessed the power to command lightning, combined with his extraordinary aura, Cocolia tacitly refrained from mentioning arresting the visitors from beyond the sky or throwing them into prison. Zeus spoke first. I am a new member of the Astral Express. The three children's journey to Gerolovi for training was a result of a consensus between the Express's navigator and us. Cocolia breathed a sigh of relief. She had thought the so-called Astral Express was just a group of cosmic swindlers coming to Belobog to scam them. After all, those three children really didn't look like formal members capable of such a grand project. So the one truly coming to solve our problem isn't the three of them, but you. If the formal members of the Astral Express are all like you, I wouldn't mind talking to you. Finding that Cocolia's attitude was wavering, the Stellarans will in her mind instantly became restless. Seeing that Cocolia was about to fall due to Branya's disappearance, Zeus had suddenly appeared and made her original determination waver. Cocolia, don't listen to his nonsense. Only by creating a new world can Belobog have a future. No, from the perspective of the Astral Express, my arrival is merely to provide a safety net for those three children and prevent any irreversible situations. Upon hearing Zeus's words, Cocolia's original expectations were instantly extinguished. Exactly. Saving Belobog still depends on us. Hearing Zeus's implied refusal, the Stellaris cores will immediately become excited again. From the perspective of the Astral Express, are the people of Belobog not even worth as much as three children? Hearing that Zeus was unwilling to help, Jeopard, who was nearby, also became somewhat agitated. Cocolia glared at Jeopard, who immediately realized he had spoken out of turn due to his agitation. Jeopard quickly apologized. I'm sorry, Lord Zeus, I was a bit emotional and my words were offensive. However, Jeopard's words gave Cocolia inspiration, allowing her to see things from a new angle. Subsequently, Cocolia signaled Jeopard to leave. After Jeopard left and closed the door tightly. From the perspective of the Astral Express, Then what about yourself? Would the Astral Express intervene? The trailblazers on the Astral Express have a high degree of freedom. Ensuring those three children don't meet with accidents is the Astral Express's bottom line. As for asking for my help, I don't require any payment. If I had to name one, it would probably be for the people of Belobog to convert their faith to me as their god. What do you think? Hearing that Zeus's request was so simple, Cocolia found it hard to believe. Just a request for conversion, and he would be willing to help deal with Belobog's crisis. Cocolia remained silent for a while and did not give an immediate answer, but instead turned around to look at the city outside the window. Seeing that Cocolia still had doubts, Zeus used his invincible wisdom, Métis, to arrive at an answer. The process of conquest is the process of invasion, and the process of invasion is the process of sowing seeds. Are you still single? Switching back to Eros mode, a charming smile once again appeared on Zeus's face. The Supreme Guardian's sole duty is to protect this city and select an excellent successor. Aside from that, nothing else matters. Protecting this city, huh? Zeus came up behind Cocolia and placed both hands on her shoulders. A marriage alliance. Since you're uneasy, let's have a marriage alliance. Marry me, Cocolia. Compared to that chattering Stellaris core in your head, I'm much more reliable. Cocolia turned around abruptly, her large white rabbits bouncing with her sudden movement. Because they were standing so close, they lightly brushed against Zeus's chest. Realizing this, Cocolia immediately blushed and took a step back to widen the distance. Even if it wasn't intentional seduction, her charming figure, like a fully ripened peach, couldn't help but make Zeus let out a soft hum. Then again, since the moment I walked in, that thing has been nagging incessantly. It's a miracle that you successive Supreme Guardians have managed to remain sane. Under Zeus's interference, the voice of the Stellaris cores will suddenly vanished from Cocolia's ears. Cocolia, who had been bewitched by it and was on the verge of collapsing, showed a visible improvement in her mental state. Zeus's miraculous methods made Cocolia even more convinced of his strength. Then please, use your own will, free from the influence of the Stellaris core, to consider it carefully. Zeus was just about to leave. There's no need to consider. Belobog's situation no longer allows me the time to consider. When dealing with a woman as proud and stubborn as Cocolia, you have to let her see your power, use unconventional means to pressure her, and then slowly savor the results later. Hearing that Cocolia had agreed to his marriage proposal, Zeus pulled her directly to his side. Cocolia was about to resist, but then remembered she had already agreed to his request and didn't dare move. Zeus pressed Cocolia into the luxurious chair in front of the office desk. Feeling the burning heat radiating from Zeus, Cocolia became somewhat flustered. What are you doing? From her studies as a child to becoming the Supreme Guardian, Cocolia had never had such intimate contact with a man. Although she understood the theory, the actual experience was another matter entirely. Don't worry, it's just a little bit of fun. Deploying a barrier to isolate them from the outside world, Zeus took out a rope specially made in Olympus. This was a playful little prop he often used with his wives at home. Cocolia, having no power to resist, was tied up by Zeus. Her already ripe to bursting figure became even more alluring, her proud curves displayed vividly under the outline of the rope. Her full thighs, clad in Belobog's standard black stockings, were forced apart as Cocolia's face flushed with shame. Knowing that she might lose her first time here, Cocolia was both flustered and somewhat expectant. Shedding Cocolia's expensive clothes, revealing the enticing intimate wear beneath her coat, her long, full black stockinged legs paired with the seductive lingerie made Zeus's great thunder surge even more. Amidst Cocolia's nervous and expectant trembling, Zeus also removed his own obstacles. Zeus's grand stature caused the originally shy Cocolia to widen her eyes in shock, producing a hint of fear. Wait, please wait. Without giving Cocolia time to react, the great thunder rolled and surged, ready to strike the enemy. Seeing that she couldn't stop Zeus, Cocolia could only give up her struggle. Please be gentle. Just as it had pierced the Star of Tears back then, with a high-pitched cry from Cocolia, her Star of Tears was also pierced by Zeus's great thunder. An hour later, the entire desk was filled with traces of battle. Whether it was the corners of her mouth, her jade-like feet, or her Star of Tears, Cocolia's body was covered in battle scars. What remained of her clothes had been turned into rags during the fight. Releasing the restraints on Cocolia's body, Zeus used divine power to clean up the traces of battle. Don't forget your promise. Cocolia barely propped up her body, which had gone soft after the battle, feeling this sense of weakness and satisfaction. Naturally, Zeus used his hand to tilt Cocolia's chin up. Looking into her eyes, which were filled with an uncontrollable love that seemed ready to overflow, he leaned down and kissed her in one smooth motion. Although Cocolia instinctively resisted at first, she immediately went soft again, enjoying the final afterglow. After a short while, Zeus released Cocolia with satisfaction. Looking at Cocolia, whose eyes were somewhat unfocused, Zeus kissed her forehead and then left her office. Once Cocolia was fully conscious, the barrier naturally dissolved. Cocolia originally wanted to lift the wanted posters for the three youngsters, but at Zeus's suggestion, she didn't do so, in order to train them. At the same time, to put Cocolia's mind at ease, Zeus went directly to the front lines under Jeopard's guidance. A single blast of great thunder wiped out all the rift creatures on the front line along with the rift itself. For a considerable period of time, there should be no more warfare on the front lines. Upon seeing that he had wiped out all the enemies on the front line in one go, Jeopard's tone remained unchanged, but the way he looked at Zeus became even more reverent. Zeus's fame also began to spread through the army first. The boundless thunder evoked humanity's fear and worship of natural power, and Zeus, who could manipulate the divine power of lightning, was naturally seen as a god reborn in the eyes of ordinary soldiers. Although the people of Belobog grew up listening to the stories of Qliphoth and lived within the walls built by Qliphoth's power, Qliphoth's great achievements didn't help them as directly as Zeus's thunder clearing out enemies and removing the threat to their lives, so Zeus naturally overshadowed Qliphoth. Without the sword of Damocles hanging over their heads, the nobles of Belobog became restless, and under the guise of maintaining the purity of the faith in Qliphoth, they began to slowly cause trouble in the shadows. In view of Zeus's great achievements and the Supreme Guardian's orders, Zeus obtained the power to freely enter and exit all places in Belobog. Since Zeus had nothing to do, and with the enemies on the front line cleared, Jeopard had a brief moment of leisure. Zeus sought out Jeopard again for a chat. During the conversation, Jeopard mentioned his older and younger sisters, and the two naturally went to the Neverwinter workshop. After making his presence known before the Landau sisters, Zeus calculated that the three youngsters should have woken up in the lower part, so he also planned to head there. Inside Natasha's clinic, Natasha, who had been busy all day, was resting in her chair when Seal's voice suddenly came from outside the door. Dr. Natasha, there's news of another visitor from the stars. They say with a wave of his hand, he wiped out all the rift creatures outside Belobog. Now some people in the upper part are already equating him with Qliphoth. I see. Unlike the three youngsters who went to the lower part through Sampo's methods, Zeus entered the lower part through one of the several official elevators connecting the upper and lower cities. Before his arrival, because Zeus had cleared all the rift creatures in the upper part with a single strike, his resounding fame had made both the upper and lower cities hear of this visitor from the stars, and his appearance was already known to everyone. For the sake of freshness on this journey, Zeus changed his outfit when heading to the lower part. With the help of Eros, he transformed into a young man like the three youngsters. After a while, as the elevator slowly came to a halt and opened again, what came into view was a scene completely different from the upper part. Compared to the bright sunshine, wide plazas, and towering statues of the upper part, the lower part could be described as dark and cramped. The only light sources here were the mining lamps emitting a faint glow. Stepping out of the ancient elevator, in the distance was a mountain of trash made of scrap mechanical parts. Suddenly, Zeus sensed a gaze from the trash mountain watching him. Zeus looked over from afar. On the trash mountain stood a small petite girl with long silver hair and red eyes. Special note: according to official settings, Clara is an adult. It was Clara. Such a pitiable child reminded Zeus of Erisville and his own child, Ilia. Zeus walked toward Clara. Realizing Zeus had discovered her, Clara was somewhat at a loss. It wasn't until Zeus approached that Clara reacted and wanted to run away. Just as she turned around, she heard Zeus speak. You must be Clara. Finding that Zeus knew her, Clara forgot to run for a moment. Does Big Brother know Clara? Zeus reached out and slowly stroked Clara's head. The warm feeling made Clara recall her mother. Although Zeus's stroking made Clara less afraid, she was still very nervous. Her whole body shrank slightly, and her legs trembled faintly. I am Zeus, a visitor from the stars who recently arrived on this planet. Hearing Zeus's name, Clara was very surprised. According to Svarog's description, Zeus should be a grandfather with a white beard, a serious face, and a sturdy build. Why did he look so young? But the warmth from Zeus's hand made Clara gradually relax, and she didn't have the mind to ask Zeus about it. Big Brother's hand is so warm, why is that? Clara thought to herself. The young girl squinted her eyes, enjoying the warmth she hadn't felt since losing her mother. After a while, Clara realized her head was being stroked by Zeus. Extremely embarrassed, Clara's face immediately turned bright red, and she quickly stepped back, wanting to move her head away from Zeus's hand. Sorry, Big Brother's hand was too comfortable. Clara didn't react in time. The girl explained to Zeus in a fluster. Her well-behaved and sensible personality, soft and gentle tone, and exquisite, cute face made Zeus's affection for her even stronger. It's all right. I can never get enough of stroking a cute child like Clara. I also have a daughter. She's as cute as you are. Seeing you reminds me of her. Hearing Zeus praise her for being cute, Clara was very happy. Recalling the feeling from earlier, she couldn't help but feel her heart race. She had never had such a feeling since she was a child. But when she heard Zeus say he had another daughter just like her, she couldn't help but feel a bit lost and even a hint of jealousy. At this moment, two mini Claras appeared above Clara's head. One was Angel Clara, and the other was Devil Clara. Angel Clara condemned the girl's thoughts. Clara, what are you thinking? You and Big Brother just met for the first time. How can you think something like, it would be great if I could replace Big Brother's daughter? But Devil Clara tempted her instead. Anyway, his daughter isn't here, and he seems to like you a lot. Why not give it a try? Zeus watched as Clara lowered her head, unsure of what she was thinking. One moment she was frowning and shaking her head vigorously, and the next she looked full of longing as if tempted by something. All right, Clara, come here Tilda, be good. Saying that, Zeus picked Clara up in his arms like he was holding his daughter and found a flat place to sit down. Being picked up, Clara was momentarily lost in the feeling and actually forgot her previous shyness. Clara, why are you here all by yourself? Where is Svarog? Today Clara wanted to come out by herself. Clara can also do some things for everyone on her own, so I didn't let Mr. Svarog follow me. In the eyes of Clara, who had lost her parents at a young age and longed for family, although Svarog was a robot, he was already no different from her parents. But Svarog was a robot after all, and he could never truly replace what Clara's human parents could have given her. And now Zeus's arrival had filled this void in Clara's emotions. Then why are you here, Big Brother? The reason I'm here. It's because there's a giant robot here that I need to fix. Once it's fixed, all of Belobog will be safe. Zeus's reason for being here was simple. In the future, he couldn't stay in this universe forever. Geralov, as the first planet to submit to him in this universe and the future birthplace of his faith, wouldn't be strong enough on its own. Setting aside distant future challenges, the debt issue with the Interstellar Peace Corporation alone was something Geralov's local forces simply couldn't withstand. But one thing could help them, the creation engine. Of course, it alone couldn't stand against the corporation, but with a slight modification from Zeus, a small-scale integrated machine god true body could be created. In the original Type Moon universe, early human civilization expanded into space using these small-scale integrated machine god true bodies, which were known as the ultimate god-slaying weapons of human civilization. To show gratitude to Zeus for giving them this weapon, human civilization named it, Divine Arsenal AA Zeus. To be honest, the giant head of Zeus's true body in Type Moon really weirded me out. It really did a disservice to the modeling and illustrations of his humanoid terminal. Every time it encountered a so-called god from another planet, Divine Arsenal AA Zeus would simply flash with lightning, and the god would be utterly annihilated. Even those who survived by luck would immediately recognize the situation and choose to surrender. Of course, even Divine Arsenal AA Zeus couldn't withstand an attack from an emanator-level entity without Zeus's personal support. However, Zeus believed that at that level, his Divine Arsenal AA Zeus could buy enough time for the people of Geralov to call for help from the Astral Express, thereby summoning him there. Zeus would handle the Stellarn problem for Geralov. The remaining Rift creatures and the Stellarn hunters would be like clay chickens and pottery dogs before Divine Arsenal AA Zeus, easily crushed with one hand. Does Clara know where that big robot is? Hearing Zeus's words, Clara shook her head. Sorry, Big Brother, Clara doesn't know. But Mr. Svarog might. Mr. Svarog is the smartest person in this area. As expected, in the lower part, only Svarog was likely to know where the creation engine was. Although Zeus could scan the whole planet to find it, and mindlessly mowing down enemies is fun, sometimes following the guide step by step in a game has its own unique charm. Following Clara's lead, they passed through one dim mind tunnel after another, finally arriving at a place that could hardly be called a settlement. It was dilapidated, filled with scrap and waste, with only a few tents and campfires proving it was indeed a gathering place. Unlike the fairly formal management of the wildfire organization, this settlement was gathered solely based on Svarog's formidable strength. It was a motley crew. Without Svarog keeping them in check, they would have collapsed from internal strife long ago. Halt! Halt! Entry is prohibited without identity verification. Just as they were about to enter the settlement's camp, several mechanical soldiers appeared from the side, the optics on their heads flashing red. Seeing the mechanical soldiers guarding the gate, Clara took the initiative to step forward. As the leading mechanical soldier scanned Clara with its optic, the red lights on all the soldiers turned green. Ding! Identity verification successful. Welcome home, Clara. Holding Zeus's hand, Clara smiled happily and said, I'm back. Where is Mr. Svarog now? Big brother wants to see Mr. Svarog. Receiving Clara's request, the mechanical soldier turned around and began to lead the way. As they walked, the people in the settlement stared warily at the stranger, Zeus, but were very warm toward Clara, with people constantly greeting her. If not for the automata leading them, someone might have surrounded them already. Registering Zeus and Clara, the two followed the mechanical soldier's guidance to Svarog's location. Welcome back, Clara. How was your adventure this time? Accompanying the mechanical voice, a red light lit up as a massive robot turned around and walked over slowly. A red beam scanned Zeus. Svarog was searching his database for Zeus's information. Clara is very happy. This big brother is the Zeus you told me about. Zeus. Svarog searched his database. Zeus's physical characteristics didn't match. According to his database, Zeus should have the appearance of a majestic old man, not the young boy before him. Originally, according to Svarog's calculations, Belobog was on the verge of falling. All he could do was delay the tragedy as much as possible. But 2 days ago, Svarog received news that 3 outsiders calling themselves Trailblazers from the Astral Express had entered Belobog. However, according to Svarog's calculations, the variables brought by these 3 people alone were still insufficient to avert the coming tragedy. Until the day before, according to the news he received, the Trailblazer Zeus, who also came from the Astral Express like the trio, demonstrated astonishing strength. Seeing the massive variable Zeus represented, Svarog saw hope for saving Belobog. Although I do not know why you look different from the Zeus in my records, welcome, Mr. Zeus. We need your help. Naturally. That is exactly why I have come. Seeing that Zeus and Svarog weren't clashing but were having a pleasant conversation, Clara breathed a sigh of relief. Mr. Svarog, Big Brother said he's looking for a giant robot. Do you know where it is? Svarog's single eye flashed with red light. A giant robot. You must be referring to the creation engine. Indeed, if you were to power the creation engine with your strength, all problems would be easily solved. Of course, this was only the most optimistic estimate Svarog could make based on his current data, not knowing Zeus's true strength. The so-called rift creatures were merely cannon fodder consumed by the Stellarn, the cancer of all worlds, on Belobog. The true final boss, the Stellarn, was a powerful enemy capable of unleashing a planet-wide blizzard. And what about Belobog? Not only was the creation engine still unfinished, but the conflict between the upper part and the lower part could no longer be suppressed. A war between the 2 cities was about to break out. Even if they successfully defeated the Stellarn in the end, what about the remaining Stellarn hunters? Furthermore, with the Interstellar Peace Corporation's massive debt, Belobog's future was truly worrying. But the creation engine is not yet complete. The manpower and technology in the lower part alone are insufficient. I hope you can use your prestige to call upon the relevant technical personnel from the upper part to continue completing the creation engine. No. The creation engine's current state is perfectly sufficient for my plan. Please take me there directly. Svarog didn't know what Zeus was thinking, but he followed his request and took him to the creation engine. Gazing at the massive robot before him, which stood as tall as a mountain. Though it seems quite crude and weak to me, every time I see such a sight, I can't help but marvel at the great creativity of humanity. This is exactly what I like most about humans. Zeus extended a finger, igniting a small ball of fire. Within the flame surged energy fluctuations completely different from the great thunder. Divine Fire Forge, Myriad Creation A++, Anti-Galaxy Noble Phantasm. A noble phantasm sublimated from the legend of the god of fire, Hephaestus. Legend says it is a forging fire condensed from a furnace that can melt any ore and craft peerless divine weapons. In Zeus, this noble phantasm merged all concepts of forging from human civilization. When unleashed with Zeus's full power, it could instantly melt several galaxies and transform them into divine artifacts. Zeus slowly extended his finger, and a small flame flew toward the creation engine. The moment it touched, the flame erupted, enveloping the entire creation engine. Although the creation engine's exterior remained unchanged, its interior had already undergone a radical transformation. Svarog watched the entire process of Zeus refining and modifying the creation engine. Through its scanning equipment, it could see that while the current creation engine looked the same on the outside, its internal mechanical complexity far exceeded anything before. If the old creation engine could only cultivate the land, the current one, no, the divine arsenal Zeus, was now capable of piercing through planets. Only now did Svarog understand Zeus's power. Even if all the forces of Belobog stood together to block him, they would only be wiped out. Why are you willing to help us? Previously, Svarog had merely considered Zeus a powerful trailblazer who either needed technology like the creation engine or coveted the Supreme Guardian's power of preservation. But Zeus had modified the creation engine to such an extent with just a wave of his hand. Honestly, Svarog truly didn't know what else on this planet could possibly be worth Zeus's desire. Zeus briefly explained his origins and the problems he was facing to Svarog. I hope Belobog will convert to my faith. This creation engine, or rather, it should be called the Divine Arsenal Zeus now, will replace Qliphoth as the spiritual totem here. The crowding of other eons in this universe will prevent the yang energy from being attracted to me like a black hole, and my problems will naturally be alleviated. But how do you intend to resolve the conflict between the upper part and the lower part? If the two sides still cannot unite, it will remain an obstacle to your future plans. Don't worry, I've already thought of a plan. When Zeus eliminated the rift creatures on the front lines, he anticipated that without the pressure of survival, most of the other nobles in Belobog would be unable to restrain their greed and would try to take things further. Since these people already enjoyed exploiting the commoners and had committed many misdeeds, he would simply shift the conflict between the upper part and the lower part onto them before eliminating them. Then, Zeus would distribute favors, and with the source of the conflict gone, the upper part and lower part would naturally become as close as family again. Meanwhile, behind the two, hearing that Zeus had many wives, Clara showed an imperceptible smile in a corner Svarog hadn't noticed. Even Clara herself wasn't quite sure why she had smiled. At that moment, Devil Clara and Angel Clara appeared once more. Strangely, this time they reached a reconciliation. That's a very good idea. If I can't be his daughter, becoming his wife is also an option. That way, there's no need for jealousy or sadness. It's truly a perfect solution. Having understood Zeus's plan, Svarog knew the next step was to visit another settlement in the lower part managed by Wildfire. As the current manager of his own settlement, Svarog would undoubtedly accompany Zeus. Svarog, Clara, and Zeus arrived at Stellarn Hot Springs town after a journey. At this time, the trio had just established themselves in Stellarn Hot Springs town. Stell and March 7th were playing with Hook, while Branya stood to the side with a furrowed brow. Seeing the situation in the lower part over the past few days, which was completely different from what she had heard, had been a heavy blow to her. Suddenly, a purple figure appeared. I've received word that a man has entered Stellarn Hot Springs town along with Svarog and Clara. You'll meet them with Natasha and me in a bit. Everyone looked surprised. They had originally planned to see Svarog in a couple of days, and they hadn't expected Svarog, who usually stayed in his camp and never left, to take the initiative to find them. Soon, the two groups met and introduced themselves. Hello, Mr. Svarog. I am Natasha, the current leader of Wildfire. This is Seal beside me. Behind me are the trailblazers from the Astral Express, Stell, March 7th, and Dan Heng, as well as Branya from the upper part. Ms. Natasha, on our side are Svarog, Clara, and Zeus. Hearing the unexpected name, Natasha's group was shocked, especially the trio. Zeus, you. I remember you were a majestic old man with a full white beard. How did you become like this? That was just a form I assumed to maintain the stability of my rule. Technically, this face is my true appearance. So, what do you think? Isn't it handsome? Looking at Zeus's handsome face, March 7th his face instantly turned red. Oh no, he's exactly my type. No, March 7th, now is not the time to be thinking about that. In their previous discussion with Natasha, the trio, Branya, and Wildfire had decided to join forces with Svarog to break into the upper part. By using Branya's influence to gain the support of the Silvermane guards, the upper part and the lower part would unite to confront the Stellarn. It seems our ideas coincide. Hearing Zeus's words, the trio, Branya, and Seal were very happy. So you convinced Svarog, right? Correct. Recalculating with the Astral Express Trailblazers as new variables, the possibility of success has emerged. Both sides hit it off and finalized the general strategy for entering the upper part. That evening, a banquet was held to celebrate and boost morale. Laughter echoed over Stellarn Hot Springs town, but Natasha sat in a corner with a worried expression. The trio had been in the lower part for a while, but Svarog had never sought them out. Yet, as soon as Zeus arrived, Svarog brought him and Clara to visit. Clearly, the variable capable of tipping the scales wasn't the trio, but the newcomer, Zeus. According to the information Natasha had received, the upper part initially had a warrant for the arrest of the visitors from beyond the sky, yet Zeus had walked out of Clippeth Fort openly. After he became famous on the front lines, Cocolia did not stop the rumors of Zeus's deification, instead, she deliberately accelerated their spread. From these signs, Natasha suspected that Zeus had reached some kind of agreement with Cocolia. The so-called unification of the two parts sounded beautiful, but who would be the leader afterward? How would the people of the lower part, as the weaker side, protect their rights? Especially since Zeus might join the upper part's camp, what would they do then? While Natasha was weighing her options, a hand rested on her shoulder. Beautiful Ms. Natasha, why are you sitting in a corner looking so troubled? Today is a day for celebration. Hearing the voice, Natasha looked up to find Zeus. His head was very close. When she looked up, her lips almost brushed against his. Natasha's face instantly turned bright red. Mr. Zeus, you're leaning a bit too close. Zeus, enjoying the banquet's cheerful atmosphere, moved his face back slightly after hearing Natasha's words. Natasha looked at Zeus's face, which perfectly matched her ideal partner, and suddenly remembered a piece of gossip circulating in the upper part, that Cocolia and Zeus had a secret physical relationship, which was why Cocolia hadn't arrested him initially. This rumor hadn't spread because anyone in the upper part was capable of breaching the barrier Zeus had set, but because those ambitious nobles had conspired to slander Cocolia. Unexpectedly, their fabrication had actually hit upon the truth. Meanwhile, in the upper part, at the Neverwinter workshop. I didn't expect you to send me a secret message. Come to think of it, we haven't spoken a word to each other in years. Seeing Cocolia appear at the door of the Neverwinter workshop with a nostalgic expression, Serval hurriedly pulled her inside. What are you doing, Cocolia? I asked you to come here secretly in the middle of the night specifically to avoid being seen. Speak, what is it? Cocolia casually found a place to sit. Although she asked Serval what was happening, her confident eyes seemed to say that she didn't care about it at all. What time is it, and you're still like this? Those inhumane fools found me and asked if I wanted to reclaim the military power belonging to the Landau family. They want to completely overthrow you, and then install a puppet supreme guardian. Oh, it's just that. Don't worry, in my eyes, they're just clowns. Long before Zeus went to the lower part, he had told Cocolia his entire plan. In Cocolia's eyes, those nobles were already fish on the chopping block. Hearing Cocolia's words, Serval became even more anxious. Don't worry. Do you have a good plan? Relying on that Zeus, your rumored man. How can you guarantee he'll definitely stand by your side? Wrong. Wrong. What's wrong? Do you have a good plan? No, I mean Zeus is indeed my man. That's not a rumor. Hearing that Cocolia had found a man, Serval was stunned speechless, momentarily forgetting about the noble rebellion. After a while, Serval reacted. So what? When they've dealt with you, they'll send a few pretty women to Zeus's bed. What difference would that make to him? Cocolia shook her head, telling Serval all about her and Zeus's plan and Zeus's objective, and showed Serval the sacred flame Zeus had given her before he left. Olympus Sacred Flame, Child Flame. Noble Phantasm Rank, C+. A child flame split from the Olympus Sacred Flame, possessing unspeakable energy. As long as the holder of the sacred flame exists, the sacred flame will not extinguish, and life will not cease. It is a symbol of the spirit of Olympus, and also an extremely high-quality energy source. As a pathstrider, Serval could feel the powerful energy within the sacred flame, which put her mind at ease. Seeing the sacred flame Zeus gave Cocolia, Serval finally felt relieved. By the way, quickly tell me what's going on with that Zeus. Back then, you couldn't stand any man, and now, in just a few days, you've fallen. The big trouble was resolved, and a huge weight was lifted from Serval's heart. Without worries, Serval began to gossip about Cocolia. Earlier, when she heard about the nobles planning a rebellion, Cocolia showed no reaction. But when her good sister from back then asked about her love story, Cocolia stammered, unsure where to begin. I saw that Zeus, although very handsome, looked quite weathered. Do you perhaps like that type? Oh, no, he actually looks like this. Saying that, Cocolia activated her path power to create a small model of Zeus, which was how Zeus looked after undoing the seal of Eros. He is indeed very handsome. There's probably no one in all of Belobog who can compare to him. Staring at the statue for a while, Serval's heart gradually became restless. Serval found it strange. The more she looked at the statue, the more she felt that her dream lover should look exactly like this. Looking at her somewhat unusual good sister, Cocolia, having been through it herself, immediately understood what was happening to Serval. Cocolia knew that her good sister Serval was also an older single woman, and there was no man in all of Belobog she had ever fancied. Now, Zeus's appearance was perfectly timed. Noticing Serval's interest, Cocolia teased softly, this is a rare opportunity, you know. Shall I play matchmaker for you, big sister? Big sister, my foot. Look at you. The man this old lady fancies, this old lady will go after him herself. Amidst their playful banter, night fell. Lower part, Stellarn Hot Springs town. After a night of revelry, everyone was exhausted and had returned to their rooms to rest. Although this celebration was nothing to Zeus, and his energy was still abundant, seeing that no one was left, Zeus had no choice but to return to his room. Back in his room, Zeus lay on the bed and muttered to himself, Olympus used to have such celebrations, but I always feel like something is missing. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Mr. Zeus, are you asleep? I'm not asleep yet, please come in. Natasha opened the door and entered Zeus's room. Is something the matter, Ms. Natasha? Hearing Zeus's question, Natasha appeared somewhat flustered. Mr. Zeus, you are a trailblazer from the Astral Express, well-traveled and knowledgeable. I wanted to ask you about a way out for the lower part. Break into the upper city, cooperate with Cocolia and the Silvermane guards to wipe out the old nobles of the upper city, and then merge the two cities. From then on, there will be no more barriers. Isn't that good? Can they truly merge seamlessly again? Due to the upper city's blockade, the people living in the lower part now bear the hatred of broken families. Even if they vent it on the old nobles, can the two cities, separated for years, truly reunite? Zeus was silent for a moment, then said, Ms. Natasha, you should know that this requires time to adjust. But do we really have time to adjust? The upper city, with more resources, is naturally stronger than us. How can the people of the lower part ensure they won't be abandoned again? Natasha closed the door and used her path power to create a soundproof space. I happened to hear a rumor that you and Cocolia have that kind of relationship, which is why there was no conflict between you two at the time. Although I don't know if it's true, it gave me an idea. Saying that, Natasha took off her coat and boots. It's true, you know. Hearing this, Natasha smiled and climbed onto the bed. Then it seems even more appropriate. You don't need to force yourself, Ms. Natasha, I've already reached an agreement with Cocolia. Natasha was unmoved by Zeus's words and continued to approach him on the bed. You're not an ordinary person, you should know that I can't be reassured by mere words. I must personally forge a sufficiently close relationship to feel at ease. Don't worry, I've remained a virgin all these years in the lower part. It's a bit embarrassing to say, but you are actually my ideal type. If these things hadn't happened, perhaps I would have pursued you myself, so please don't say anything about me, forcing myself, anymore. Just as he was wondering what was missing, Zeus suddenly remembered what it was, watching Natasha, flushed, climb onto his bed. Every banquet eventually turned into a music party, and this time, it ended without becoming one, which made Zeus feel a little unaccustomed. However, Natasha's arrival afterward just happened to make up for that. At Zeus's strong request, Natasha put on a mask. Lying on Natasha's thighs, wrapped in black silk, his gaze passed over two peaks, looking at the loving eyes beneath the mask. Zeus only felt the great thunder constantly surging. It's not good to be too excited. Let me help you calm down. Saying that, Natasha began to perform the legendary rune skill. Zeus responded with a hero skill. Ultimately, Zeus failed. After this round of confrontation, Zeus sat up from Natasha's lap, and Natasha moved in front of Zeus to begin the second round of confrontation. Zeus was about to use his old trick, but Natasha had already prepared countermeasures. Under these specifically restraining measures, even the invincible Great Thunder was defeated. Speaking of Belobog's specialties, one must mention the city's advanced nylon technology. A thin layer of black silk could withstand the cold from the stellarn. Now, Natasha personally engaged in close communication with Zeus, jointly exploring the various effects of this mysterious nylon with its strong cold resistance and warmth retention. Zeus's great thunder struck fiercely against the nylon. The extremely high temperature of the lightning tore one hole after another, of varying sizes, into the nylon. After researching the material properties of nylon, the main event of the night truly began. Unfortunately, Natasha had exhausted all her stamina after gaining the previous advantage, and ultimately, Zeus, with his exceptionally long health bar, emerged victorious. Early the next morning, Zeus walked out of his room. Clara and Branya, who lived next door to Zeus, looked at his face and remembered seeing Natasha enter Zeus's room with their own eyes last night, feeling both shy and curious. Subsequently, with Zeus's explanation, all those involved in the lower parts operation learned that Cocolia would also help them. With a pincer attack, the nobles would be eliminated, and the merging of the upper and lower cities would naturally follow, filling their hearts with confidence. Of course, among those involved in the operation were informants planted by the upper city nobles. Under Zeus's deliberate indulgence, the news of the uprising naturally did not escape those vermin. Cocolia even specifically asked Serval to secretly send messages to the nobles, who then set the time for the uprising 2 days later, in a magnificent ballroom. A pot-bellied noble, holding a wine glass, downed the red wine in one gulp. Do those lowly dogs from the lower part really think they can overthrow the heavens by lying with Cocolia? Exactly. If it weren't for her agreeing to handle the blockade of the lower part and bear the consequences, why would we let her take power? But after only a few years, she's forgotten how she climbed up. The noble's voice suddenly rose, and he raised his right hand with the wine glass. Suddenly, the ballroom lights went dark, and a spotlight shone on him. My esteemed colleagues, the rift at the front line has been cleared under the blessing of the Amber Lord Clippeth. And now, a traitor has appeared among us. That is the Supreme Guardian Cocolia. She has betrayed her faith in the Amber Lord, allowing rumors that damage the Amber Lord's glorious majesty to spread in the upper city, attributing the Amber Lord's divine miracles to her lover. Such an evil person, we must strike her down. Now is the time for purification. Down with Cocolia, glory returns to the Amber Lord. As he let out his final shout, other nobles in the darkness also raised their wine glasses and shouted along. Down with Cocolia, glory returns to the Amber Lord. Down with Cocolia, glory returns to the Amber Lord. Of course, this included Serval, who was feigning allegiance. In fact, among these shouts, hers was the loudest. Now, let us enjoy this last dance before victory. As the ballroom lights came back on and elegant music slowly played, Serval stood in a corner, leaning against a wall, quietly watching these people's final carnival before their demise. My lord, how should we deal with that Zeus? Although it was said at the ball that the rift at the front line was eliminated by the Amber Lord's miracle, we all know it was actually Zeus who did it. Hearing his subordinate's question, the noble waved his hand. Don't worry, it's only been a few days since he eliminated the rift at the front line. Cocolia immediately erected a statue of him in the square, and he doesn't hide it at all when walking on the streets. I know this kind of person, they just love being the center of attention. When we take down Cocolia, how much would it cost to send people to flatter him? Even if he truly has ambitions, he would still need people to govern Belobog, wouldn't he? He'd still have to rely on his nobles. At that point, it would just be a change of leadership. People always believe what they want to believe. These nobles still held onto their old views and never considered that Zeus wanted to kill them all and replace them with a new group to manage the city. 2 mornings later, the lower parts allied forces, led by Natasha, attacked the upper city through a secret passage provided by Sampo. At the same time, some nobles were arranged to lead private soldiers, along with the Silvermane guards loyal to the Landau family, towards Clippeth Fort. Honestly, just a mere Cocolia, even with the power of the Supreme Guardian, what good is it? Do we really need so many people? I also want to kill a few commoners for fun. Due to Zeus's arrival, Cocolia completely abandoned the power of the Stellarn. Coupled with her previous betrayal of the Supreme Guardian's oath, the power of preservation from the Supreme Guardian weakened, and her strength reverted to slightly stronger than a normal Pathstrider's level. Stop chattering, be quick. If we're a step late, the lower part will be completely divided up, and we'll only get the leftovers. As the rebels ascended the stairs and opened the Supreme Guardian's office door, they saw Cocolia sitting calmly in her chair, holding a cup of coffee in her right hand, elegantly enjoying its deliciousness. What time is it? You're still so leisurely. Have you been scared silly and can't move? Seeing Cocolia unmoved by their intrusion, the leading noble sneered and gave the command to attack. The Path Striders, revered as guest ministers by their families, charged at Cocolia together. Suddenly, in the warm office, a cold wind blew through, and countless ice spikes extended from Cocolia's feet, piercing several of the Path Striders who were rushing at the front. Using such a powerful move, her energy must be nearly depleted. Keep going, don't be afraid. Hearing the leading noble's words, Cocolia smiled. Normally your words would be correct, but unfortunately, today I have this. The sacred flame on Cocolia's chest began to burn, and her almost depleted energy immediately replenished. Seeing the sacred flame flash and Cocolia return to full strength, the leading noble began to urge Serval. Hurry up and make your move. If we lose, you won't survive either. Alright, I'm coming. Serval fiercely strummed the guitar in her hands, and bolts of purple lightning flew out. Unexpectedly for the leading noble, the purple lightning did not strike Cocolia, instead, it hit him. Ah! What are you doing, Serval? As he turned to scold Serval, the Silvermane guards, under Serval's signal, began attacking the noble's private soldiers. I never explicitly said I was on your side. Turning around, Serval put her arm around Cocolia's shoulder. Seeing that defeat was certain, the leading noble immediately knelt down without any dignity. Lady Cocolia, please, spare my life. I can tell you everything I know, and I can even serve as an informant among the nobles. Please. Halfway through his plea, the person was frozen into an ice sculpture by Cocolia. After dealing with this group of nobles, Cocolia led Serval to the location where the nobles were fighting the lower part forces. At the site of conflict between the nobles and the lower part, the three little ones and Seal charged ahead, while Clara applied the power of the path onto Svarog, providing fire support from the rear. Svarog's fabricated mechanical soldiers coordinated with the lower part troops, complemented by Natasha's abundance path healing effects, and the surprise attack from Cocolia and Serval, who led the Silvermane guards for reinforcement. Even though it was discovered halfway through that some nobles had accepted the power of the Stellarn, with Zeus's help, the noble army undoubtedly suffered a devastating defeat. Aside from the informants the nobles had deliberately planted in the lower part and pushed to the front, not a single person on their actual side died in this battle, thanks to Zeus's covert assistance. The next day, except for a few leaders deliberately kept alive for public trial, all noble forces were wiped out overnight. When the sun rose and shone upon the statue Cocolia had erected for Zeus, the awakened citizens of the upper part were astonished to find the once high and mighty noble lords hanging in front of the square. When the noon bell chimed at 12 o'clock, Cocolia walked up to the temporarily constructed podium. Dear citizens of Belobog, today we will hold a grand trial here to judge these sinners who betrayed Belobog. As Cocolia read out the crimes of these nobles one by one. Didn't you agree back then, Cocolia? I'm sorry, I was wrong. I am willing to give up all my property, please spare me. The noble lords hanging in the square were either cursing loudly, crying for mercy, or remaining silent. As the lengthy reading concluded, the execution began. Zeus made his move, and bolts of lightning pierced through the heads of these people one after another. As the once high and mighty noble lords died one by one, the first cheer erupted, followed by a massive roar of cheers from the citizens of Belobog below the stage. Wife, did you see that? Your great vengeance has finally been exacted. Dad, those fools have finally been punished. May your soul rest in peace. Son, daughter. Countless people who had been harmed by these nobles thanked Cocolia for judging them. The great vengeance that was once impossible to achieve was finally exacted. Finally, Cocolia revealed the concealed history to the public. The Stellarn, the Antimatter Legion, the Interstellar Peace Corporation, one unfamiliar term after another assaulted the minds of the Belobog people. Upon hearing that the Rift creatures were merely cannon fodder for the Stellarn, the citizens below the podium felt nothing but absurdity and disbelief, followed by deep despair. Now, with the help of the Trailblazer from the Astral Express, we are confident that we can defeat the cancer of the universe, the Stellarn, bring warmth back to this land, and deal with the Stellarn hunters afterward. Undoubtedly, the execution of these nobles who had habitually committed atrocities elevated Cocolia's prestige to an unprecedented level. When she claimed they could defeat the Stellarn, the despairing citizens of Belobog felt as if they had seen a beam of light in the darkness, and they believed her without hesitation. That afternoon, Zeus led the party, the three little ones, Branya, Cocolia, Natasha, and Seal, to face the Stellarn. Knowing this was the final battle, the Stellarn also unleashed its full power, using the bodies of the previous supreme guardians of Belobog as a template to construct a new physical body named the Mother of Deception, which stood before everyone. Just like in the original plot, a great battle was imminent. To train the three little ones and the others, Zeus pretended to fall for the Mother of Deception's trickery and withdrew midway, only watching from the side to ensure their safety. Besides Kokolia and Natasha, who knew Zeus's true situation, and Dan Heng, who had noticed some clues, everyone else thought Zeus had genuinely been defeated by the Stellaran's trickery. Suddenly, the Mother of Deception condensed an ice spear and hurled it at Branya, who had no time to dodge. In this critical situation, Xing met the condensed will of the Supreme Guardian, whom she had met with Zeus earlier, in the spiritual realm. Just like in the original plot, Xing obtained the Flame Lance, which represented the power of preservation and had been enhanced by Zeus. Aided by the power of the Heaven Thunderer as Zeus, which was a creation engine with an appearance modified by Zeus, Xing quickly shattered the Mother of Deception. After defeating the Mother of Deception, everyone immediately checked on Branya. They saw Branya, her face flushed red, hugging Zeus's head with both hands while being held against his chest. Didn't you lose your fighting strength after being tricked by the Mother of Deception? That was all a lie, Xing. According to the agreement with Himeko, the focus of this Geralov trip was still to train you all. I knew it. You wiped out the Stellarn hunters on the entire space station in one go back then, so how could a single Stellarn trick you this time? With no casualties, this expedition against the Stellarn ended perfectly. According to the previous agreement, Kokolia and Natasha both publicly announced that Zeus had turned the tide and resolved the Stellarn crisis. Xing, who naturally cared little for fame or fortune, was appeased after Zeus gifted her a miniature Heaven Thunderer as Zeus. The others had nothing to complain about either. With the disappearance of the Stellarn, the snow and ice that had covered Geralovi for hundreds of years began to slowly melt. Under the deliberate propaganda of Kokolia and Natasha, Zeus gradually replaced Qliphoth as the new faith of the Belobog people, and the holy fire of Olympus became Belobog's new symbol. The obstruction to the star rail disappeared, external communication for Geralovi resumed, and the entire planet regained its vitality. Continental class fragmentation mechanism, activated. Divine core connected. Divine core activated. My cry, my lament, ah ah. You are the abundance that cultivates Te stars, Strigmos Eleusinia. Accompanied by a huge sound echoing across the sky, a giant sphere with a sharp blade at the bottom descended from the heavens, causing the entire Earth to tremble. Target location bombardment preparation, complete. Interstellar bombardment evacuation warning sent. Energy charging, 3 seconds until bombardment. You are the gold that pierces the stars, Tina Lindelian. As the countdown ended, a massive laser beam descended from the sky. All nearby Stellarn hunters were instantly vaporized. Accompanied by attacks from components detached from the Heaven Thunderer as Zeus, most of the Stellarn hunters on Geralovi were cleared out, and the people of Geralovi welcomed a long-awaited period of recovery and rest. Meanwhile, in the reception room of the Herta space station. Based on my detection of the abnormal energy fluctuations at the Herta space station a while ago, your man's energy is not as great as you imagine. His energy far exceeds that of a normal emanator, but it is far from comparable to an eon. No, no, no. You won't understand until you see it with your own eyes. The matters on Geralovi had come to an end. After celebrating with the people of Belobog, Zeus returned to the Herta space station using his unique, exclusive anchor point. Zeus teleported back to the space station and opened his eyes, finding himself in a pink, girlish room, Asta's private room. In front of Zeus, the young woman, who had to get up early to deal with the aftermath of the Stellarn hunters' attack on the space station, was groggily stretching, completely unaware of Zeus's arrival. It wasn't until Asta tried to get out of bed, accidentally missed a step, and pressed her hand against Zeus's chest that she realized someone else was in the room. She opened her eyes wide and saw it was Zeus, the man she thought about day and night. When Zeus left the space station, he left behind an exclusive anchor point only he could use, and Ms. Herta had Asta move it to Asta's own room. Ms. Herta, isn't this inappropriate? Asta felt very embarrassed hearing Ms. Herta's command, but she didn't explicitly refuse and even harbored a slight expectation. Indeed. What if he comes back and, overcome by bestial urges, he... Ms. Herta's words plunged Asta into fantasy, making her forget Ms. Herta was still in front of her. It wasn't until Ms. Herta couldn't stand it anymore and interrupted her that Asta snapped back to reality, shaking her head like a rattle drum. I believe Mr. Zeus is not that kind of person. You mean you hope he's not that kind of person when dealing with anyone but you, right? Don't think I didn't know where you were that day. If you don't want to move it, then don't. Ms. Herta's words were equivalent to exposing Asta's peeping that day. In the end, although Asta said, "Isn't this inappropriate?" she still blushingly moved the anchor point into her room. Waking up to see the man she longed for, Asta could barely speak coherently. Mr. Zeus, why are you here? I was wondering the same thing. I was told this anchor point was supposed to be placed in Ms. Herta's laboratory. Oh, that. I remember now. Ms. Herta said her laboratory was a bit full recently, so she had to put the anchor point here with me first. Speaking haltingly and instinctively glancing away, Zeus knew Asta was lying immediately. However, he was happy not to expose her, and even entertained the idea of teasing her. Then I should have a serious talk with Ms. Herta. How could she do this? We'll move this anchor point back to the laboratory later. Hearing Zeus's words, Asta was momentarily speechless. She neither wanted Zeus to take the anchor point away nor did she want her lie exposed. Seeing Asta's distress, Zeus decided not to tease the cute girl anymore. Then, when she wasn't paying attention, he kissed her forehead. Alright, I won't tease you anymore. Ms. Herta needs to see me, so I should go meet her. We'll talk later. Zeus's words made Asta realize her little trick had been exposed, causing her some shame, anger, and resentment. But the warmth she felt on her forehead from Zeus instantly made her dissatisfaction vanish. Oh, okay. I'll wait for you. Don't break your promise. Asta got up and kissed Zeus's cheek too, then skip-hopped toward the dressing room to change into her everyday clothes and choose her decisive battle attire for the future. Hearing footsteps entering the door. Did you soothe your new little girlfriend? Ms. Herta put down her experiment, turned around, closed her eyes, and offered her face to Zeus. Didn't you design this for me? As a veteran of romance, Zeus naturally understood what Ms. Herta wanted upon seeing her gesture. He immediately gave Ms. Herta an enthusiastic response. Unlike Asta's shy, shallow kiss, the two fought fiercely for several minutes until Ms. Herta's cheeks were flushed and she could barely hold on. Darling, what did you mean when you said someone wanted to see me and might be able to help solve my problem? I am the one who wanted to see you, dear. A woman wearing a kipao in the style of the Shenzhou emerged from a door in the laboratory. Hearing the opening address, dear, Zeus knew that the friend Ms. Herta mentioned was Ruan Mei. She is an expert in the field of life studies. When it comes to researching how to reproduce, no one knows more than her. Ms. Herta was about to introduce more when Ruan Mei stared intently at Zeus like a fanatic. Such powerful path of the propagation power. Ms. Herta had little experience with the path of the propagation and could only see the immense power Zeus had concealed. Ruan Mei, as an expert in the field of life studies and proficient in the path of the propagation, immediately recognized the power named Pan, which Zeus was deliberately suppressing. That was the foundation of Zeus as the great father god, infinite wildness, endless desire. The denial of his own foundation caused Zeus to only be able to display a fraction of his full power, which is why Ms. Herta said Zeus's true energy level was comparable to an eon. Besides this, Ruan Mei saw more. If the earliest eon of propagation, Tizaulos, became an eon because it was the sole survivor and thus burst forth with an intense desire to reproduce. Then, without a doubt, Zeus's desire for reproduction was purer and hotter than Tizaulos's. He simply wanted to reproduce and sow the seeds of his genes, without any underlying reason. However, such a pure desire for reproduction did not allow Zeus to become a new eon of propagation, only because the powerful reproductive desire could not yield actual reproductive results, and Zeus's own strict definition of reproduction meant his path power was incomplete, only half. Although some single-parent births exist in various myths, the mainstream has always been reproduction through the union of male and female, which is also seen as a symbol of patriarchy. Zeus's ideology is naturally like this. Even when Zeus engaged in homosexuality in Greek mythology, he never produced children. This Zeus greatly stimulated Ruan Mei's research enthusiasm. Compared to Ms. Herta, Ruan Mei, who was even more dismissive of worldly common sense, immediately started touching Zeus inappropriately. Seeing Ruan Mei getting out of hand, Ms. Herta quickly called for a stop. I said, you should at least pay some attention, this is still my laboratory. Ruan Mei lay on Zeus's body without a care, using a special syringe to draw his blood. Don't mind it, this is just a small part of the experiment. A small part, huh? First it was hair, then blood, I'm afraid to think what's next. Do you two want to stage a passionate night here the moment you meet? It's not impossible. Herta, if you're still not ready, you can let me go first. Hearing Ruan Mei's words, the thinner-skinned Herta finally couldn't help but turn red with anger. She rushed forward and pulled the two apart, whose eyes were practically melting into each other. Zeus's gaze held pure desire, while Ruan Mei's was also pure, but it was a thirst for knowledge. Zeus, having been pulled away, turned to look at Herta. Speaking of which, darling, are you ready? When Zeus asked this question, Herta remembered she had originally called him back to the space station to tell him she was ready. But she hadn't expected that after Ruan Mei's disruption, she would become nervous again. With no other choice, Herta could only turn her head away with a blushing face, not daring to look directly into Zeus's eyes. Not yet. I thought you were already prepared. Zeus sounded a bit disappointed. Sensing the disappointment in Zeus's tone, Herta seemed to make a decision and stomped her foot. If you really want it, it's not like it's impossible now. Sensing the change in Herta's heart, Zeus pulled her into his embrace. This time, he had no naughty thoughts, simply stroking her back with his hand. It's okay, I will keep waiting for you until you are ready. Hearing Zeus's words, Herta whispered with a blushing face, in a voice smaller than a mosquito, thank you. Although the voice was very small, no one present was an ordinary person, so they naturally heard it clearly. Zeus, feeling playful, put his ear close to Herta's mouth. I didn't hear what you just said clearly, could you say it again? Seeing that Zeus was teasing her, Herta bit Zeus's ear and repeated those two words very shyly using an encrypted voice that only the two of them could hear. After hearing it, Zeus stood up straight with a face full of intoxication and satisfaction, feeling 10 or even 9 times better than having just finished a huge music party. In contrast, Herta lowered her head after speaking, steam already rising from her head. She only said one thing, get out. A mechanical arm then pushed both Zeus and Ruan Mei out of the laboratory. Just as he was invited out the door by Herta, Zeus's phone rang. He picked it up and listened. I'm sorry, Mr. Zeus, I forgot that my parents are coming to the space station to visit me in the next 2 days. Our wonderful date will have to be postponed. It's okay, give my regards to my father-in-law and mother-in-law. Hearing Zeus call her parents, father-in-law and mother-in-law, Asta was overjoyed. Oh, okay, next time, I will definitely give you a big surprise. Hearing Asta's call canceling the date from beside Zeus, Ruan Mei smiled elegantly. Now it's just the two of us. Shall we find a place to talk? Talk about what? Herta is already like that. If the two of us get together now, she'll be furious. Naturally, it's about the issue of how you can sire offspring. Ruan Mei shared with Zeus her perspective on life before and after becoming an emanator. You are not from this universe, so you might not understand what eons mean in our eyes. When I first began walking on the path, observing eons was like a frog in a well gazing at the moon in the sky. But when I became a genius, and looked up at the eons again, it was like a single ant seeing the vast blue sky. Compared to the complete power of the eon of propagation, the so-called collection of masculinity in the azure brilliant galaxy is merely a piece of flint used to ignite a raging fire. Ruan Mei's suggestion to Zeus was to first use that masculine flint to ignite the raging fire of the propagation, and then use the power of the propagation to suppress and divide the masculinity. Then, the problem would naturally be solved. It's possible that ancient eons like Qliphoth are not like this, but clearly recorded eons such as the eon of propagation Tizaulos and the Hunt eon land should fit this method of becoming a god where flint ignites a great fire. However, the long-term suppression of Pan had already been etched into Zeus's soul. Back then, Zeus had expended a great deal of effort to seal Pan. Now, how could it be easy to undo? Between life and death lies great terror, between life and death lies great enlightenment. This was the final conclusion Zeus and Ruan Mei reached at the end of their discussion. But who would be the one to apply this pressure to Zeus? In the entire universe, the number of emanators capable of rivaling Zeus could be counted on one hand. The Shenzhou alliance of the Hunt. There's no need to mention the generals. Perhaps even if the Shenzhou alliance Marshal Hua came, if she didn't take back the power distributed to the generals, she would likely only last 2 moves against Zeus. And if they used the cloud hazing mirror to directly face the majestic power of an eon, not to mention that the Shenzhou alliance would certainly be unwilling to sacrifice a grand diviner as the cost, that arrow of the eon crossing time and space would provide enough pressure, but Zeus might just go GG the moment the seal was broken. The family of harmony. Only the harmony eon Zype using the infinite long-lived as a proxy could defeat Zeus, but the seal might not even be broken before he was assimilated into a member of the family by the infinite long-lived. the Garden of Recollection of Remembrance, or the Masked Fools of Elation. Choosing between them, it was either that Zeus's power was far from enough to face an Aeon directly, or they were too mysterious to even talk about. Until the very end, the two still hadn't decided on who could serve as the one to provide that pressure. That was until the two of them accidentally caught sight of the Interstellar Peace Corporation logo on the phone Zeus had just used to talk to Asta. Right, the Interstellar Peace Corporation. Those two guys, Zeip and Louis Fleming, must still be at Pier Point. The power under their command is just right. But how to lure those two old guys into making a move? And how to protect his own people while they were making a move? The Genius Society aside, what if the Interstellar Peace Corporation retaliated against Gerillo V? Suddenly, a flash of inspiration hit Zeus's brain. That's right, there's still a debt on Gerillo V. I'll use this debt to get in touch with Diamond, then cooperate to lure his competitor Oswald Schneider. Then, through the temptation of massive profits, I'll make him go all in, driving the other P-48s to make a move. With my strength, dealing with them will be easy. By then, the two old guys in the corporation will have no choice but to step in. Before that, I'll transfer the people on Gerillo V. By that stage, the two old fogies won't have the mind to pay attention to Gerillo V anymore. But what will you use to tempt him? Zeus noticed that although this world had the powerful force of paths, under such great power, methods for extending life were pitifully few. Not to mention something like his golden apple tree, which could extend a normal human's life by nearly 1,000 years without side effects. Such massive profits would surely drive Oswald Schneider crazy. To be honest, if you don't count the direct intervention of Ian's, the Interstellar Peace Corporation is almost the undisputed boss. AP-47 is at the emanator level, AP-48 director has at least emanator level resources and might even be comparable to outstanding emanators like the Choir of the Multitudes. The two old guys at P-49 could probably even fight a top-tier emanator proxy like the Infinite Long-Lived if they risked their lives. For this great battle, Zeus had to give it his all. This was a massive gamble, win, and he would ascend to the heavens in one step, lose, and he would be reduced to ashes. Only when Gerillo V, after several hundred years, broke through the blockade of the Stellarn to re-establish contact with the corporation and face debt collection, would he use the power of divine arsenal AA Zeus to haggle with Topaz, one of the 10 Stonehearts. This would cause the bad debt to drag on indefinitely, making Diamond lose face at the board meeting. During this period, he would let Oswald Schneider, accidentally, discover the 1,000-year life-extending golden apple tree and the suspected remnants of the path of permanence disguised using the path of propagation. This would naturally cause the mission to be transferred to Oswald Schneider's hands. When the time came, he would offer slight resistance to Oswald Schneider's invasion, then feign defeat to lure the other directors to follow the bet. Then, he would defeat and kill Oswald Schneider with lightning speed, forcing the other directors of the corporation to go all in for the sake of the Interstellar Peace Corporation's reputation. He would use this as an excuse to take down all the other directors, after which Zeip and Louis Fleming would have no choice but to show themselves. This series of operations sounded so reasonable. The only problem is how to guarantee that Oswald Schneider will make a move unreasonably. If he doesn't, the subsequent arrangements will be completely meaningless. You don't need to worry about that. Oswald Schneider is a fanatical believer in preservation and a powerful supporter of expansionism. Even if he doesn't move himself, the other directors will secretly egg him on. Not to mention he is currently competing with Diamond, who is also AP-47, for the last board seat. Now all Zeus had to do was accumulate strength to ensure he could break the seal and grasp the power of an Aeon faster, or last longer, in the final battle. To this end, Zeus bid farewell to this universe and returned to the azure brilliant galaxy world. After many days, Zeus opened the chat group again and found the video Star had uploaded of the space station at that time. Please give me some Saint Quartz. Why does this image look so familiar? Let me think. Isn't this Zeus from Greek mythology? No wonder his name is Future Eternal Calamity. King of the Trash Can. You know him. Aren't we all from different worlds? Fujimaru Ritsuka then described to everyone in the group the Zeus under the normal historical progression of the Type Moon worldview. King of the Trash Can. That's not right, is it? The Zeus you're talking about had groups of wives and concubines and countless children, but the big boss Future Eternal Calamity is still worried about not being able to have children. Pink Fatty. Maybe it's a parallel world. Female sorcerer pile driver. Exactly. In your world, Zeus was beaten by a wandering star vanguard, while he was able to obliterate the wandering star vanguard's home base. The difference between worlds is truly massive. Old man Huang, such strong and powerful power, the Imperium needs you. Oh. The Emperor didn't care about any of that. In his eyes, Zeus was simply a heaven-sent partner. The Emperor had always disliked the imperial cult describing him as a god, and some within the Adeptus Mechanicus also had complaints about the Omniscia having no body and being mechanically modified. If Zeus came to the Imperium, he could perfectly make up for these things. His powerful strength could help share the heavy pressure of faith, and his soul could freely switch between a machine god true body and a human flesh body, making him perfect to take over as the new Omniscia of the Adeptus Mechanicus. Since he held an absolutely burning love for humanity just like himself, there was no need to worry about him becoming a filial son, like Horus. Suddenly, the chat group gave a ding announcement. Since King of the Trashcan posted the first video, to encourage active communication in the chat group, the title of Dragon King is granted to her, along with one opportunity to invite new members. Female sorcerer pile driver, invite new members. Quick, pull in another beauty. Pink fatty, it must be a beautiful child. Please give me some Saint Quartz, it must be high rarity. Preferably in SSR. King of the Trashcan, at future eternal calamity, boss, do you have any requirements? She had only just been born and didn't have many requirements for who to invite, and compared to the other group members, Star felt closer to Zeus who had helped her. Zeus thought for a long time and gave his thoughts. Future eternal calamity. I hope the newcomer can help me improve my strength. King of the Trashcan. Okay, invite new member opportunity, use. After a while. Welcome, what is heart, to the chat group. What is heart? Unknown program access detected. Question. Where is this? Can you answer for me what is heart? Pink elf. What's with this child's way of speaking? King of the Trash Can. It's really full of mechanical vibes. To be honest, even the big boss future eternal calamity, who is a machine god reincarnation, isn't like this. Seeing the new member's way of speaking and the content, combined with everyone's requirements, Zeus deduced that she should be the stray ex machina from the era of the Great War of the 16 Races in No Game No Life, Shuvi. A beauty, cute, with maxed out rarity, and she eventually obtained the world-creating Star Cup. She perfectly met everyone's criteria. The Star Cup, in a sense, the creator god of the world of Disboard. The power of the entire world is merely fragments that accidentally drift from its container. Holding the Star Cup allows one to become the one true god of the entire world of Disboard. If the Eons in the world of Honkai, Star Rail influence, modify, or even destroy the universe in their own special ways through the power of paths. In this process, an Eon is equivalent to an administrator with universe permissions, able to use the permission called path to wantonly modify the database that is the universe. Then, the Star Cup is the creator and owner of that universe database, possessing unique and supreme authority. Although the powerful force of the Star Cup prevented Zeus from completely merging it into his body to solve his problem in one go. Of course, Zeus wouldn't do that anyway. Forcing a fusion with incompatible power would, at best, cut off his path forward, and at worst, lead to a conflict of powers resulting in death and the dissipation of his path. But using it as a trump card would ensure he wouldn't be reduced to ashes even if he failed. Moreover, this world was very friendly to Zeus. Compared to the powerful Eons of Honkai, Star Rail who wielded the authority of paths, the authority held by the gods of this world was negligible. All authority was concentrated in the victor's trophy, the Star Cup. Zeus had decided to return to his own world to recuperate for a while before heading to the world of Disboard where Shuvi was. Stepping out once again from the time-space tunnel traversing different worlds, Zeus only saw a pair of massive symbols of motherhood crashing into him. Good child, you've finally returned. Her tall stature made even Zeus look very small. Zeus was held tightly in her arms, her plump figure seemingly turning into a marsh that would swallow Zeus forever. The newcomer was none other than the great Sumerian goddess of creation who regarded Zeus as her only child and also her only true love, the saltwater dragon mother who desperately longed for Zeus, both as her child and husband, to return to her embrace, Tiamat. Feeling the deep love from Tiamat, Zeus hugged her back, though his hands were placed in a slightly improper position. Feeling the fiery heat below her lower back, the love in Tiamat's eyes as she looked at Zeus deepened. Her hands stroked Zeus's head and back, and the tail behind her wagged violently with excitement. Do you want it again? Good child, no matter when, Mama will definitely satisfy you. Every time he stayed with Tiamat, Zeus could always feel an unprecedented sense of peace and relaxation. That feeling of being doted on and embraced by a mother always made Zeus sink into it, unable to turn back. Some time later, under Tiamat's gentle gaze, Zeus completed the project of resolving the Eros issue for the first time since returning to Type Moon. Zeus lay on Tiamat, an intense sensation rushing to his head, making him feel as if he were about to fly. Seeing Zeus's face full of satisfaction, Tiamat's hands did not stop. She leaned down to Zeus's ear and spoke in a soft, gentle voice. Good boy, relax, good boy. You don't need to think about anything, leave everything to mama. No need to hold back, just do whatever you want to do. The gentle voice was like a devil's whisper, eroding Zeus's remaining reason. The hot breath hitting Zeus's ear made the great thunder flash with 10,000 bolts of lightning. Come, good boy, let's count to 3 together. The tone, like coaxing a child, played with Zeus's sanity at every moment. 1 tilde tilde, 2 tilde, 3. As soon as she finished speaking, Zeus seemed to have released a seal, and Eros was fully revealed at this moment. Afterward, Zeus, who had entered a sage-like state, poured out his longing for them in Tiamat's gentle embrace. After lingering with Tiamat, Zeus went to find his other wives one by one. From Demeter, he felt the joy of an autumn harvest. With Aphrodite, he discussed love and romance. He felt the heavy rain of Tenochtitlan, the rain god. He soothed Durga Kali. He bullied Kama, said as female from the start in this story. I wish you success in battle. After selling 10 units of Divine Arsenal AA Zeus, he had exactly 1,000 points. Using these points, Zeus traveled to the world of Disboard where Shuvi was. Having just arrived in this world, Zeus felt sorrow at the eternally crimson sky, the earth blasted apart by various attacks, and the corrosive black snow falling from the sky. Endless slaughter had stretched for thousands of years, so long that even the reasons for killing each other had been forgotten. The blood debts and hatred on each other's hands became a new motivation for slaughter. The entire world had turned into a meat grinder, everyone threw themselves into killing as soon as they woke up every day. This was a despair with absolutely no end in sight. When Zeus conquered the azure brilliant galaxy, he rarely saw such tragic battles. Most of the time, the colonial fleet would only take out the leaders on a planet who refused to yield. Innocent civilians wouldn't be harmed at all. The grace from the great god Zeus would make them spontaneously support his rule, like Megatron's 8-hour workday. Suddenly, a loud noise came from afar, and a scorching beam of light shot through several large mountains toward Zeus. Zeus waved his hand, intending to send the beam back the way it came, but unexpectedly, the beam only shifted slightly and exploded behind him. My perception and output effects have dropped. Is it the authority suppression of the Star Cup? Is the destruction in Disboard actually a restricted result? For a moment, dust flew everywhere. The explosion behind Zeus completely leveled the area for thousands of meters around, leaving only the piece of land beneath him unharmed. At this moment, Zeus suddenly discovered that there were complex tunnels in the remaining parts of the blasted mountain. A group of humans was busy relocating in the tunnels. When Zeus stepped forward, a white-haired girl passed through the moving crowd and came before him, kneeling and kowtowing in a series of movements as smooth as if they had been practiced 1,000 times. Looking at the white-haired girl before him, Zeus could only sigh at the sorrow of weak races. Facing the strong, they could only bow and scrape, discarding their dignity to seek a slim chance of survival. In the past, when Zeus's colonial fleet reached planets with very backward civilizations and used what the natives called supreme power to kill the native leaders who refused to give up power and wanted to continue riding over others, the other natives reacted exactly like this white-haired girl. I do not know which lord of the higher races you are. I am Riku, the leader of this tribe. I am here to welcome your presence. Riku. A girl. Zeus was secretly surprised. In fact, during the process of unifying Earth, when he went to the world of Tenjiku, Zeus had encountered such a thing. At that time, his current wife, Kama, was rumored to be male. Although he had seen things like Kama being rumored to be male before, he hadn't felt surprised then because he had been through the baptism of FGO before transmigrating. But to be honest, this was the first time Zeus had seen someone like Riku. Seeing Riku's actions and hearing what she said, the people around realized Zeus's presence. They all put down what they were doing and also knelt and kowtowed to Zeus with terrified faces. Seeing these ancestors of the humans from the world of Disboard bowing to him reminded Zeus of when he had just arrived on Earth with his original machine god body. The people of Greece were the same back then. Both to obtain the Star Cup and out of love for humanity, Zeus decided to protect them. No need to worry. I am the great god Zeus. Lovely lives, become my believers. Great God. It's a God race. Seeing a life form at the top of the Disboard race hierarchy proposing that they believe in him, the rest of the humans expressed one after another, "It is my honor." Only Riku felt a slight resistance in her heart and was slow to say those words of submission. Even Riku herself felt it was strange. Clearly, a powerful god was willing to protect humanity, so why was she unwilling to submit? Such a thing was like a gift from heaven for humans. A powerful god had absolutely no need to deceive humans. Zeus saw through Riku's abnormality at a glance. From his perspective, he could easily see that Riku's resistance was caused by Ted acting in the shadows. With a wave of his hand, Zeus blocked the connection between Ted and Riku. The resistance in her heart vanished, and Riku naturally said, "It is my honor." In this way, the land beneath Zeus's feet became the new foothold for humanity and the future capital of the kingdom of Elchia. Originally, Zeus thought he could suppress everything and that the so-called god race was not worth mentioning in his eyes, making obtaining the Star Cup of the Disboard world as easy as taking something from his pocket. However, the suppression of the Star Cup made Zeus re-examine this world. In this world, the strength he could exert might be on par with the strongest god race, Artosh. He still needed to plan carefully to achieve final victory. In this regard, he was very optimistic about the girl Riku. In the original work, even without his appearance, she would have been able to achieve final victory. Since there was already a way to achieve victory, there was no need to do extra things and lose the victory already in hand. Under Zeus's protection, the human settlement was quickly rebuilt and expanded. But the charity Zeus gave to humans was not infinite. The human tribe still had to send people to scout the surrounding situation as usual, except that with Zeus's blessing, no one was sacrificed anymore. This situation alone made the human tribe, which used to wander everywhere with people constantly being sacrificed every day, deeply grateful. As the tribe leader and the human Zeus valued most, Riku was personally accompanied by Zeus on every scouting mission. Under Zeus's search and deliberate guidance, Shuvi soon met with Riku and Zeus. At the beginning of the meeting, compared to the still thin and haggard Riku, Shuvi naturally set her sights on the more charismatic and passionate Zeus. Pinning Zeus down, a series of numbers flashed rapidly in Shuvi's golden pupils. Discussion, organizing current situation. Watching this startling scene, Riku, standing aside, did not dare to act rashly. According to the records passed down in the tribe, the Ex Machina, a race created by the god of doubt, Hanru, mostly acted in groups. It was said that if all Ex Machina fought together, they had the power to shoot down a god race. As a human, Riku's weak body could not cause even a shred of damage to the metal body of an Ex Machina. On the contrary, if it weren't for Zeus's blessing on her, any weapon Shuvi had as an Ex Machina would be enough to take Riku's life. In Riku's eyes, being an enemy of one Ex Machina was being an enemy of the entire Ex Machina race. Shuvi pressed one hand against Zeus's chest. Although Zeus could easily break free from Shuvi's restraint, he really wanted to hear what Shuvi wanted to say to him. "Brother, I can't take it anymore. Make me a woman." "Ha. Sure." Riku was shocked by Shuvi's sudden statement, but Zeus wasn't surprised at all. He laughed loudly and agreed to Shuvi's request. Hearing Zeus's reply, Shuvi leaned down and kissed him without hesitation. The emotionless yet exquisite face, the calm yet explosive language, the supreme sense of contrast, and the softness of the lips he felt made Zeus's great thunder even more powerful and dominant. Looking at the joy on Zeus's face and the shock on Riku's face, Shuvi, sitting up from Zeus, showed a puzzled expression at the two completely different reactions. "Cannot understand. I'm the one who can't understand." Riku roared frantically in her heart. Shuvi stood up from Zeus. According to the data collected in the past, Zeus beneath her should have been blushing and playing hard to get out of shyness, rather than looking excited. This did not fit her deduction model. Speculation. This current situation cannot satisfy the subsequent steps. Cannot satisfy. Zeus stood up with a disappointed look. As expected of a god race, facing this situation, he actually still has that kind of desire. Riku observed Zeus's reaction, marveling in her heart. Exactly which step is not satisfied? Zeus lowered his head to think about the reason why Shuvi didn't continue just now. Seeing that neither Zeus nor Shuvi had any intention of continuing the communication, Riku stepped forward. If the Ex Machina came with ill intent, the powerful Zeus might have a chance against the entire Ex Machina race, and if he couldn't win, he could still escape. But as a human, she and the others in the tribe could only wait for death. At this time, Riku had to ask clearly. "What exactly do you mean?" Riku, standing nearby, questioned Shuvi loudly. Query, What do you mean by you? Shuvi turned to look at Riku and asked about Riku's words expressionlessly. Don't play dumb. The cluster can hear what I'm saying, right? Negative, this unit's connection with the cluster has been severed. Hearing the words, connection severed, Riku immediately realized that Shuvi was a lone unit. Hearing that Shuvi was indeed alone as expected, Zeus appeared behind Shuvi at this moment, hugging her with both hands and displaying his exquisite acting skills. What a poor child, have you been separated from your kin? Come back with us. Affirmative. Although she didn't know what this wandering ex machina was doing here, Zeus had clearly snapped out of his thoughts just now. I'll leave the rest to this god race, Riku thought. By the way, why did you come here? Little sister. Answer, to analyze the unique language of human interaction, the unique language called the heart. Why do you want to understand what the heart is? When asked by Zeus about the topic of the heart, Shuvi's golden eyes fell back into a calculation state. Reason, this unit is investigating the existence of the heart. During the execution of the analysis, errors occurred frequently due to theoretical inquiry, leading to this unit being scrapped. Afterward, I have been performing observations as a single unit. Analyzing the heart, the ex machina were actually exploring such a philosophical topic, which Riku found incredible. Before Zeus could speak, Shuvi continued to explain. Request so-called skinship, this kind of language through contacting skin tissue, is inferred to be an act of understanding each other's heart. While explaining, Shuvi looked back at Zeus. Perform the act of race continuation with this unit. You may ravage me as you wish, although this unit does not have a corresponding race continuation system. Although Zeus was quite lecherous in his eros, unsealed state, he still had basic conscience. Aside from the initial banter, Zeus did not actually intend to do anything to Shuvi before she understood the heart. That's the end of part 1. Part 2 is coming soon.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and support our channel for more stories. Hello everyone, this is Fanfic Audiobook. Here you find original fan-made audio stories.
Zeus's kindness, higher than the heavens. Part 2. Seeing that Zeus did not intend to do anything to her at the moment, Shuvi plugged the electronic tentacles on her back, used for connecting to the spirit corridor, into the ground. Accompanied by the flickering of the crystals at her tail, a blue halo expanded, generating a small transparent cube above the three of them. The cube instantly expanded to envelop them, and a chessboard appeared in the center. Activation, Game 001, Chess. Checkmate, requesting to begin game. Condition, if this unit wins, take this unit back and proceed with the racial continuation project. Facing the challenge from Shuvi, Zeus instead walked to the side and gestured for Riku to sit opposite Shuvi. Riku's eyes widened as he looked at the chess pieces that had appeared. Riku no longer had the heart to listen to Shuvi's conditions. Gazing at the crystal clear king piece before him, he reached out and grabbed it with a confident smile. This was the only thing he had absolute confidence in. Of all things, it's chess. By the way, what happens if you lose? Answer, take this unit back and proceed with the racial continuation project. Isn't that exactly the same thing? As a condition for playing the game, I want to modify the requirements. Is that okay, Lord Zeus? Zeus, standing to the side, nodded to indicate Riku could do as he pleased, while he himself pondered the god-slaying formulas of the elves and the corpse explosion of the dwarves. Seeing Zeus's agreement and Riku grasping the king piece, Shuvi regarded it as Riku having accepted the game request. Conclusion: abide by conditions and commence game. As a human, it was naturally difficult for Riku to defeat an ex machina analyzer like Shuvi under normal circumstances, and without Zeus's secret help, Riku was undoubtedly defeated in the end. And so, Zeus and Riku took Shuvi back to the colony. Before returning to the colony to reunite with everyone, Riku remembered an important question. By the way, what's your name? Incomprehensible. I mean your name. Don't you have one? Understood, individual identification number. After listening to Shuvi recite a long string of numbers, Riku was left speechless. Can that even be called a name? That's right, little sister. You need a human-like name, just like Riku's. Shuvi didn't understand the necessary connection between a name and her goal. Question: the condition after this unit's victory was modified to staying by your side until the analysis of the heart is complete. Is it necessary to conceal that this unit is an ex machina? It's necessary. The so-called heart is something that can sense the boundaries of mutual understanding. To live with humans from the start, you naturally have to disguise yourself as one. Hearing that it was a mandatory requirement, Shuvi decided to comply. Question: is the name freely set? As you wish. Answer: referring to self as Schwarzer. Too long, confusing, and doesn't sound like a name. Rejected for those three reasons. Exactly. Giving a name is very important. Let's call you Shuvi. In terms of transliteration, Schwarzer represents black in German, while Shuvi represents ruby. One can only say it fits perfectly. The conflicting orders from Zeus and Riku left Shuvi very confused. Confusion-free setting corrected. As the leader of the humans, Riku also pointed out that Shuvi's special way of speaking wouldn't do, and required her to correct her tone. Loading simulated personality 1610. Haha, big brother, is this okay? The forced lively tone and the lifeless, staged movements made Zeus dislike this simulated personality. Riku, on the other hand, feared that an overly lively personality would expose Shuvi's true identity too early. Thus, this simulated personality was jointly rejected by Zeus and Riku. Request: please provide the most appropriate situational setting. True. It would be troublesome if someone investigated your background. Even with the protection of the great god Zeus, a determined investigation could easily find flaws. Because he was regarded as a god race, even though Zeus was very kind to the humans in the colony, people still interacted with him with awe. Similarly, if Shuvi's true identity as an ex machina were discovered before she truly integrated, people would unconsciously distance themselves from her, and the difficulty of her understanding the heart would increase. How about, timid by nature, taciturn, and doesn't like to talk much? Also, stop adding that ex machina speech pattern at the beginning of sentences. As he spoke, Zeus patted Shuvi's head and pulled the hood of her cloak over her. Shuvi closed her eyes, and when she opened them again, there was a hint of vitality compared to before. I understand. Is this okay? A soft, delicate voice and ethereal eyes. Ah. This was the perfect cooter goddess in Zeus's mind. Combining elements of lowly, cooter, and little sister, who could possibly surpass this? This segment is a classic. One could say it marks the beginning of Shuvi's understanding of the heart. Even Riku was startled by the suddenly expressive Shuvi. The remaining task was for Zeus to handle Shuvi's neural connectors, which looked like electronic tentacles for connecting to the spirit corridor. Does this also need to be handled? Of course, little Shuvi. It's not good if others see it. Understood. I will only show it to Zeus and Riku. Then, the three of them walked into the colony. Upon arriving at the colony, Shuvi's cute appearance and tragic background, fabricated by Zeus and Riku, were quickly accepted by everyone. Only Dola, Riku's older sister, who knew Riku very well, saw something unusual, but she trusted Riku's decision unconditionally and remained very warm toward Shuvi. By the way, as an ex machina, do you have other forms? No more mature forms. Always appearing as an underage girl would eventually raise questions. If she appeared in a mature form, there would be no problem. Even if her face didn't age over time, no one would suspect anything. Because of the brutal war and harsh living environment, no one lived long enough to grow old. The people in the colony had long forgotten what aging looked like. This body is my ideal type, though. Of course, it would be even better if there were other mature forms. What a pervert, Riku cursed inwardly. Although Zeus had given many blessings, making Riku and everyone in the human colony feel deeply grateful, his interests and personality were truly a headache sometimes. Then what kind of form do Riku and Zeus like? I'm telling you, do you even know what like means? I also want mature older sisters and motherly figures filled with maternal instinct. Shut up, Lord Zeus. Seeing Zeus give another unreliable answer, Riku could only forcefully interrupt him. I'm saying, only emotions that exceed the boundaries of language can be called a heart. Riku answered Shuvi while organizing the blueprints he had obtained with great effort. Suddenly, a chessboard was placed in front of Riku by Shuvi. Holding a chess piece in her right hand, Shuvi said expressionlessly, "Then let's play a game." Shuvi intended to use the game as a wager again to obtain more information about the heart from Riku. I refuse. I have more important things to do right now. I can't waste time on meaningless games. Seeing Riku refuse, Zeus took over the conversation. It's fine as long as it's not meaningless, right? If you win against Shuvi, then open up the information you know to us. For example, when did the Great War start? What was the reason for it? Or most importantly, how to end this endless war? Hearing, end the war, Riku felt a stir of interest. Even though the human colony now had Zeus's protection and no longer had to worry about how to survive tomorrow, this also made Riku think, what would happen if humans left Zeus? Noticing that Riku's interest was piqued by his words, Zeus threw out the trump card. All the knowledge, mathematics, and design technology of the Ex Machina, if you win, open them to us. Riku put down what he was doing and looked at Zeus and Shuvi. Understood. Given the current planetary environment, it is abnormal for humans to survive long enough to obtain the protection of the suspected god race Zeus. Even Ex Machina's related analysis cannot explain it. At the bottom of the food chain, with undeveloped civilization and an inability to use spirits, yet you survived. Therefore, there must be a reason. Humans have a cognition for survival. I hypothesize that cognition to be the heart. Shuvi wants to know. As Shuvi continued, Riku's expression became increasingly grim. Zeus knew Shuvi's words were like adding fuel to the fire, but it didn't matter. Because he was there, no accidents would happen between the two. It was just the right time to let the conflict explode and be resolved. I'm saying, you wage war as you please, taking everything from us one after another. I thought you'd have some high-minded discourse, but all I get is, oh, how are humans still alive? Tell me what your hearts are thinking. That kind of thing. As he spoke, a furious Riku charged at Shuvi with a knife, pushing her down. He was about to plunge the knife down, but regained his sanity at the last moment, stabbing the knife into the ground next to Shuvi's head. Finally, he roared with immense force, whether at this shitty world or at Shuvi. All of you, just go to hell. Do you know how many people died because of you? Just how many more people are you going to kill? How many more of my compatriots must you kill before it ends? Tears slid down from Riku's eyes. Shuvi reached out and caught a teardrop. Made Riku cry. Shuvi said something very cruel. Based on this inference, if I understand that Riku's heart wants to kill Shuvi. Shuvi pulled back the clothes on her chest, revealing a diamond-shaped metal plate in the middle. With a flash of red light on the plate, it slowly moved aside, revealing the blue energy core inside. If you stab here, Shuvi will die. Shuvi realized the problem in her words. Death. I am not a biological organism. That would be permanent shutdown, unrepairable, total damage. Shuvi wants to know Riku's and Zeus's heart. Shuvi took Riku's hand and slowly moved it to her chest, aiming at the blue energy core. Riku's hand holding the knife began to tremble. A strong sense of guilt and remorse flooded his heart, and tears fell uncontrollably. Kree, Delu, Cyrus, Edo, Diwan, 48 people in total. In the past, I ordered them to die. Because of the Great War, many people indeed died like brushing away dust. But when I think that it was I who told them to die. Riku understood that Shuvi could not yet perceive this human emotion. Her behavior just now was not so much anger at Shuvi's emotionless questioning as it was anger at his own incompetence. Directing the spearhead at Shuvi was just to vent his own incompetence and shame. In the eyes of others, he was a strong and cold leader who firmly believed that humanity would achieve final victory. Only here could he open his heart and vent his pain and self-reproach to his heart's content. As his sister, Couronne also understood Riku's pain. Unfortunately, until Zeus arrived, this situation was difficult to change. Therefore, every time, she would preserve a small space for Riku to vent the pain in his heart. Even though Zeus's arrival had greatly reduced the colony's casualties, those who had died could not be brought back to life, and the guilt could not be lessened. If anything, Zeus's arrival intensified Riku's self-reproach, reproaching himself for why he hadn't led them to hold on until Zeus arrived, so they wouldn't have had to be sacrificed. Unable to experience the spiritual pain that past sacrifices brought to Riku, Shuvi stared blankly at him until Zeus, who was beside them, held the weeping girl and comforted her, saying she had done well enough. Only then did the crying gradually stop. Hearing the sounds inside the room slowly subside, Couronne knew Riku had vented enough. Just as she was about to open the door to tell Riku about the next arrangements, she saw Shuvi's upper clothes pulled down, while a disheveled Riku and Zeus were embracing. Oh. As expected of the god race. Remember to be a bit gentler with Riku and Shuvi. Couronne was happy from the bottom of her heart. Finally, someone could help Riku relieve the pain in his heart. Hearing Kurone's exclamation, Riku felt a massive headache. Kurone, I'm begging you, shut up, okay. While covering her mouth and giggling, she looked at Riku, Zeus, and Shuvi with suggestive eyes. In that case, things are simple. Lord Zeus, I'll leave Riku and Shuvi to you. If you can't hold on, call for big sister, okay. I can help you too. With that, she closed the door, leaving Riku behind, utterly drained of the will to live. Afterward, the three of them headed to the bathing area. The three of them discussed what had just happened. Until finally. Answer candidate listed. Connector doesn't matter, meaningful, irrelevant, sync refused, analysis prioritized. Desire to know Riku and Zeus's heart. Zeus and Riku alone are enough. Suddenly, Shuvi's face turned red from overheating, steam continuously rising from her head, her mouth repeating, error, without stopping. After some time, Shuvi's temperature returned to normal levels. Conclusion. I don't seem to want to go back. Seem to, that's quite ambiguous. Seeing that the key figures, Riku and Shuvi, were officially together and their conflict resolved, Zeus began to push forward with his plan. Meanwhile, in another world, the Interstellar Peace Corporation received news that contact with Geralovi had been restored. Based on past debt issues on Geralovi, the Interstellar Peace Corporation intended to send someone to handle it, but everyone believed the place was a bad debt, and no matter how much effort they put in, they wouldn't gain much benefit. Thus, no one was willing to take over. In the end, debt collector Topaz of the 10 Stonehearts, under the P-47 candidate Director Diamond, took on the task out of a sense of pity. At this moment, Zeus's countdown officially began. The next day, while the three were alone. The final war is coming soon, Zeus said abruptly in front of the two. What do you mean? Seeing that the tribe no longer suffered casualties thanks to Zeus's protection, her good days were just beginning, only for Zeus to tell her that something big was coming. It means this world will welcome the most tragic, largest scale, and most widespread war in history. The long run for the Star Cup is about to reach its finish line. The Flugel creator Artosh, the elf creator Canis, and the dwarf creator Auken, the three strongest contenders for the one true god, were already prepared. That long war is finally coming to an end. How is that possible? Artosh, who bears the name of the god of war, is overwhelmingly powerful. Canis and Auken look down on each other. If they challenge Artosh's legendary divine strike individually, they simply can't win. Exactly. Zeus nodded, then opened the portable projection device he carried. On it were the secret weapons of Canis and Auken, Void Arrow Sanctuary and Corpse Explosion. Both utilized similar principles, using chain reactions to perform god-slaying strikes far beyond conventional scales. But with these two things, defeating Artosh becomes possible. Though in the end, I think it will evolve into a three-way free-for-all. Thinking that one of the three would obtain the Star Cup, even if humans were lucky enough to survive this great war, if the god who finally obtained the Star Cup made a wish like, barbaric and low-level races do not deserve to stay in this world Canis, or, the weak do not deserve to live in this world Artosh, humanity might be wiped from this world like dust being swept away. Riku simply could not accept that. Why must it be like this? We've finally looked forward to days like these, and we are already satisfied with just this kind of life. Why? Why can't even this kind of life be granted to us? This shitty world. Riku slammed his right hand hard against the ground, venting the dissatisfaction and resentment in his heart. After venting his emotions, Riku turned to look at Zeus again. You want to participate in the struggle for the Star Cup, don't you? Naturally. Why choose us? In this great war, many races have lost their gods, and humans are incredibly weak compared to them. What made you choose humanity? Wisdom. Powerful races only squander their power, but there will always be stronger life forms that appear. Even the god race is no exception. Humans have the wisdom to think about how to survive and how to achieve victory in the face of stronger life forms. This is precisely what I value in humanity. Zeus extended both hands toward Riku and Shuvi. I believe you will surely bring me the final victory, for my sake and for the sake of all humanity. Naturally. Shuvi will help Zeus and Riku win. Similar to Zeus's estimation, the elf under Canis and the dwarf under Auken were actively preparing for war, while the confident Artosh sat on his throne waiting for challengers to arrive. For the future of humanity, Under Zeus's guidance, Riku designed a bold goal, to guide the direction of the war and achieve victory without sacrificing a single person, winning land under the sun for humanity. Even though the plan sounded absurd and laughable, under the call of Zeus and Riku, a group of people from the tribe quickly gathered to join voluntarily. Secret base, on the stage. Everyone here now is someone who, when the tribe suffered a sudden intense attack, lost their chance to escape while covering the tribe's retreat. You are people who no longer exist in this world, you are ghosts. The war will end on its own one day, but as long as the winner isn't humanity, the terrible status quo will not change. In this shitty world, it's useless to always be afraid, to flee, and to pray. The future of humanity is in our hands, we must personally create the future of our dreams with our own hands. That group of destroyers who squander their power and create various races for endless wars just to become the one true God want to get their hands on the Star Cup, a conceptual device that symbolizes absolute control over the world. They trample on everything, destroy everything. They are playing their garbage game. In that case, we shall also set our own game rules and then achieve victory. Riku raised his right hand high, appearing at this moment to possess infinite power. 1. You are not allowed to kill anyone. Because in my heart, I do not want to kill anyone. 2. You will not let anyone die. Because my heart does not want anyone to die. 3. Our true intentions must not be exposed. Because exposure is equivalent to failure. 4. Using any means is not considered cheating. Because if it's not discovered, it naturally cannot be considered cheating. 5. Their rules have nothing to do with us. Because my heart completely refuses to acknowledge the rules of mutual slaughter. 6. Violating any of the above terms results in immediate defeat. Because I believe from the bottom of my heart that a victory achieved by breaking the rules has no value. That is all. Let's give it our all without violating these rules. The end of the Great War, that is precisely our victory. We must firmly grasp victory in our hands. The enemies are all the destroyers in this world who use force to compete for the one true God. They possess world-destroying violence, which to us is despair itself, but I firmly believe that victory will belong to us. This segment can be said to be the most hype part of the original work. After Riku finished speaking, the crowd fell into silence, but not a single person wanted to back out. I thought you guys would be a bit smarter. Hearing this, the crowd below burst into laughter. Riku, do you think there are still any smart people in this shitty world? By now, how could there possibly be any normal people left in this world? Smart people would choose death in a world like this. Even smarter ones would choose not to be born. Those who remained here were all representatives of the idiots selected by Riku and Zeus. Humans are foolish. They sharpen their wisdom so as not to be killed by this foolishness. Those who have survived in a world that truly has no survival value. People who gamble all their intellect, wisdom, and technology for this. What else could they be but noble fools and respectable weaklings? Let's give it our all. We swear by the common will. Come, let the game begin. In the end, they decided to split into 3 groups. Riku would lead the other ghosts to leak information about the ultimate weapons of the dwarf and elf to avoid unnecessary casualties. Shuvi would head to the designated battlefield to set up shifting devices. Zeus would go to negotiate with the current Flower Crown Lord of the Elf, Clammy Zelnibel. Compared to the dwarf, the upper echelons of the elves seemed to have little loyalty toward the god race Canis who created them, wanting to escape Canis's control at every moment. An intruder. How did you get in? When Clammy Zelnibel walked out of the bathroom dressed lightly, she naturally discovered Zeus under the circumstances where he deliberately leaked his presence. Wary, she immediately deployed spells for attack and defense. How bold. Are all elf like this? Don't worry, I have no ill intent. Staring fixedly at the impressive size of Clammy Zelnibel's chest, Zeus once again failed to control his mouth. Noticing Zeus's gaze fixed on her chest, Clammy Zelnibel finally realized that she had just finished bathing, and the clothes she was wearing could be said to offer no concealment under the effect of the steam. Clammy Zelnibel hurriedly blocked her chest with one hand and covered her lower half with the other. The original work was too explicit, modified slightly here to avoid issues. It's because you suddenly broke in. I came here specifically to discuss important matters. Is that your reason for entering my residence without permission? Clammy Zelnibel, whose body had been almost entirely seen, was extremely infuriated and was about to launch an attack spell. Void Zero Sanctuary. Hearing the name of the secret weapon researched by the elf, Clammy Zelnibel stopped her attack spell and then used another spell to immediately change her clothes. Breaking in like this, I assume what you have to say is very important. Zeus took off his cloak, revealing his handsome appearance. In Clammy Zelnibel's eyes, he looked exactly like a man grown according to her preferences. From your form, you aren't a high-ranking race other than the god race. You don't have the scent of flowers, so you aren't a fairy. No claws, so not a beastman race. No fangs for drawing blood, so not a dhampir. After various deductions, Clammy Zelnibel was surprised to find that Zeus did not possess the characteristics of any currently known race. As for the god race, Clammy Zelnibel didn't even consider that possibility, as all existing members of the god race were common knowledge. With no obvious characteristics and no fluctuations of spirit, Clammy Zelnibel eventually reached a ridiculous conclusion. Could it be a monkey? How rude. I, Zeus, am a genuine member of the god race. Hearing Zeus's words, Clammy Zelnibel couldn't help but laugh out loud. She then launched a sudden, violent attack, which Zeus, having anticipated it, negated with a simple flick of his finger. Don't be so impulsive. I only came here to play a game with you, with our mutual information as the stakes. Zeus moved slightly to the side, revealing the chess set behind him. Seeing that Zeus had the ability to easily block her attack, Clammy Zelnibel was naturally willing to show an attitude of equal communication. If I win, you give your information to me. Conversely, if you win, I will give my information to you. With your strength, you shouldn't be a nobody. Interesting, but what information do you have that is worth betting against me? Zeus once again used the device he brought to show Clammy Zelnibel the images of corpse explosion. The dwarves already know about the existence of the Void Zero Sanctuary. My stake is the weapon that the dwarves still feel confident they can win with, even knowing that the Void Zero Sanctuary exists. What did you say? In Clammy Zelnibel's eyes, the Void Zero Sanctuary, a literal god-slaying spell, was peerless. If the dwarves knew about it in advance, they should have been so terrified that they'd flee immediately. That's right. I have acquired information on the weapon that the dwarves believe is equal to, or even more powerful than, the Void Zero Sanctuary. It seems I have no choice but to play this game with you. Clammy Zelnibel sat down opposite Zeus with a grim expression. Under the calculations of Zeus's feigns, he could naturally win or lose as he pleased. Ultimately, according to plan, Zeus allowed Clammy Zelnibel to win in an absurd, almost humiliating manner, and informed her of part of the details regarding corpse explosion. However, having obtained the information, Clammy Zelnibel clearly had no mind to think about much else. Corpse explosion. Exactly. A weapon of mass destruction comparable to the Void Zero Sanctuary, capable of destroying the entire continent. Can the weapons made by those ground moles really be equal to, or even surpass, the elves' strongest spell, the Void Zero Sanctuary? That is for you to judge for yourself. As he spoke, Zeus was about to pack up the chess pieces. Wait. You lost to me on purpose just now, didn't you? Tell me one last thing, are you an enemy or a friend? Neither an enemy nor an ally. I simply hope, as much as possible, that no deaths occur among you. Hearing Zeus's words, Clammy Zelnibel reached out and grabbed his hand as he was collecting the pieces. Fine. Mr. Zeus, after obtaining this information, what I decide to do is entirely up to me, right? Naturally. Then are you interested in another round? Mr. Zeus, the god race member rumored to be protecting the monkeys. Hearing Clammy Zelnibel call out his identity. So you did know who I was. It was just a guess. A few days ago, guards reported that some monkeys, who clearly couldn't use spirit, were teleported away the moment they were caught. I didn't act then because the information gathered suggested someone was protecting them. Just now, halfway through our game, I activated a spell specifically for calculations, yet you didn't care at all and still won. There are many stronger than me, but someone with this level of calculating power who doesn't look like an ex machina and has no spirit. I'm afraid it could only be you, the newly appeared self-proclaimed god race. His true identity exposed, Zeus stopped packing the pieces and sat back down. In that case, why do you want to play again? Clammy Zelnibel fully activated the spells around her, her body surrounded by magic circles flashing with brilliant light. I want to test the gap between my full power and a god. Just now was only halfway through and running at normal power, This time, I'm going to run it at overload from the very beginning. And what are the stakes? To be honest, besides yourself, there is nothing else of yours worth my greed. Then I shall bet myself, clammy Zelnibel, the flower crown lord, as the stake for this game. I swear it by the star cup. Seeing clammy Zelnibel's determination, even going so far as to swear by the star cup, Zeus had no choice but to accompany her for one more round. In your stake, is there any treasure comparable to me, clammy Zelnibel, the flower crown lord? Zeus tapped his finger lightly on the table, thinking about what to use as a counter stake. Haven't thought of it yet. Understandable. Not only am I, clammy Zelnibel, powerful, but I am also the most knowledgeable person among all elves. The knowledge from Canis in my head carries no small weight. Hearing the word, knowledge, Zeus smiled happily. He knew what to bet. You speak of your creator with respect, but in reality, you desperately want to escape Canis's control, don't you? Whether it's political systems or scientific technology, I will bet the things in my head that can help you break free from Canis. I swear it by the star cup. Of course, in the end, Zeus won without any surprises. After all, no matter how powerful a calculation spell was, it could not compare to calculations on a galactic scale. Come then, I belong to you. As she spoke, clammy Zelnibel used a spell to undo the clothes she had just put on. Although her movements were decisive, her slightly reddened cheeks turned to the side showed that her heart was far from calm. With meat delivered to his door, Zeus had no reason not to eat. He reached out his dragon claws and began to display his 18 martial arts, his breath blending with hers as he performed his techniques. As the saying goes, if you want to use both hands to knead a good dough, you must work from the outside in, kneading while gently shaking, with moderate pressure and a rhythmic flow. As Zeus performed his 18 dough kneading techniques, clammy Zelnibel, who had been holding back her voice at first, gradually began to moan softly. The flush on her face deepened until she finally began to hum in a low voice. Midway through, the pitter-patter of large and small pearls falling onto a jade plate could be heard incessantly. The clothes that had dried during the long chess game became wet again in certain places. With the final move of Zeus's 18 techniques, like a waterfall plunging 3,000 feet, clammy Zelnibel lost her footing and collapsed into Zeus's arms, panting heavily. Her eyes were glazed and amorous, her thoughts long since drifted away. After settling clammy Zelnibel and leaving behind the knowledge she desired, Zeus left to rendezvous with Riku and Shuvi. As for the final step, Zeus planned to wait until he returned victorious. But after Zeus left, clammy Zelnibel preserved the saliva containing Zeus's genetic information and looked toward the direction he left with a morbid gaze. From the very first moment she saw Zeus's true appearance, clammy Zelnibel had made up her mind that she must have him. The rumors that elves are very persistent weren't started by anyone else but the Zelnibel family. Dear Zeus, don't even think about running away. Meanwhile, Riku specifically wandered around places where beastman race individuals with blood destruction appeared. As expected, he was discovered by a passing blood destruction individual. Faced with an unknown intruder, the blood destruction individual naturally launched an attack. When their claws were about to touch Riku, a bolt of lightning struck down. This was exactly the protection Zeus had given him. No spirit fluctuations. Who on earth are you? You don't need to know who I am. You only need to know that the dwarves plan to use the western coast of the Lucia continent, where your base is located, for a detonation experiment. As he spoke, Riku took out a blueprint from his coat, which marked the location of the corpse explosion detonation experiment. This is a superweapon that can easily kill even the god race. Hearing about a weapon that could kill even the god race being tested at their own base, the blood destruction individuals present couldn't help but feel their hair stand on end. You are individuals with blood destruction, right? You should be able to easily infiltrate dwarf facilities. You can go in and verify it for yourselves, as you like. In the same way, Riku intimidated all the existing sentient races on the Lucia continent, making them choose to flee the continent to avoid being caught in the final battle. At the same time, because Riku chose specific times and locations to leak news of corpse explosion, each race sent people to investigate secretly, forcing the dwarf warships to move in the direction Riku had planned. Similarly, Riku leaked information about the Void Zero Sanctuary to the dwarves. The two races had a long-standing grudge, even knowing about the elves' secret weapon, they would not stop their advance. If anything, they were even more eager for the war to arrive so they could defeat their enemies and humiliate them. Shuvi, according to the plan, deployed mechanical creations specifically designed to guide attacks on the carefully designed final battlefield. Unsurprisingly, with the large-scale leak of information regarding Corpse explosion in the Void Zero Sanctuary, the Flugel, who were the wings of the war god Artosh, were very interested. However, because their creator above had not issued an order, they did not dare to act rashly. Except for the special individual, Jibril. Compared to other Flugel individuals, the special individual Jibril possessed powerful performance. Most importantly, she would rebel against orders from the creator Artosh. Without a doubt, the information on Corpse explosion in the Void Zero Sanctuary piqued her interest, causing her to leave the Flugel base, Avonheim, alone. Under the influence of fate, Jibril encountered Shuvi, who was deploying devices by herself. Oh my, are you out for a walk alone today? I only received information about the weapons of the elves and dwarves, but while investigating, I discovered spirit fluctuations unique to the Ex Machina, so I came to take a look. I didn't expect such an unexpected harvest. Good day, scrap metal. Shuvi, who carried Zeus's protection, naturally did not fear Jibril. However, Shuvi did not want to waste time in battle, and the destruction caused by a fight might expose the hidden mechanical devices being deployed. If it aroused the war god's suspicion, everything would be for naught. Most importantly, she didn't want to trouble Zeus. In the original work, the war god knew but didn't care, but Zeus hadn't specifically mentioned that, and Shuvi didn't know. To intimidate Jibril, Shuvi switched back to her original Ex Machina way of speaking. Warning: if hostile to this unit will implement corresponding measures. Shuvi's unusual reaction piqued Jibril's interest. She had actually discovered the behavior of deception in an Ex Machina individual. Just with you, a single analysis unit. I have already confirmed that there isn't a single cluster within a 100-kilometer radius. Therefore, this is a good opportunity for you to challenge a Flugel. Fortunately, the Ex Machina have no concept of death, so please do not offer pointless resistance. I refuse. What? This unit is an abandoned unit and has no value. Therefore, I hope you will let me go. If Shuvi's deception just now had surprised Jibril, then in Jibril's eyes, Shuvi, who was begging for mercy out of fear of death, was already a special individual among the Ex Machina, just like herself. Her head had already become the highest rarity trophy in Jibril's heart. While laughing with joy at being able to obtain a collection piece of the highest rarity, Jibril reached out and used spirit power to manifest a black scythe. At the same time, Shuvi also sent information about Jibril to Zeus. This was also the reason why Zeus did not continue to dally with clammy Zelnibel. Although the protection he gave Shuvi could guarantee her safety against anything except a direct attack from a god race or a special phantasma like a demon king, he still couldn't help but feel worried. For Shuvi now, the meaning of battle was to delay Jibril until Zeus arrived, preventing her from possibly discovering something and returning to the Flugel's base. Read combat script activated. Unveil. As the combat script deployed, Shuvi's arm and leg mechanisms began to transform, forming cannons and thrusters, while releasing floating units to assist in combat. Shuvi aimed the cannon in her hands at Jibril. With a single shot, the opposing mountainside was instantly flattened by the laser. But such speed was clearly insufficient to hit Jibril. Utilizing the Flugel's physical capabilities pushed to their limit, Jibril easily dodged the energy blast. Shuvi chased after Jibril, continuing to launch relentless attacks, yet all were evaded by Jibril using her formidable physique and battle-honed combat skills. Then, as Shuvi was halfway through her pursuit, Jibril suddenly turned and swung her scythe at Shuvi. If Shuvi hadn't reacted in time, Zeus's blessing would likely have been triggered prematurely. Using the grappling hook she had just deployed to dodge Jibril's attack, Shuvi flew into the air, intending to lock onto Jibril from a high vantage point. But before Shuvi could prepare, Jibril charged directly at her, straight into the cannon's muzzle. Left with no choice, Shuvi could only fire a spirit corpse shell to create distance and obscure Jibril's vision. Firing a spirit corpse shell, are you such an environmentally unfriendly bad machine? But did you really think an attack of this level could harm me? Saying this, she charged towards Shuvi in the sky. And at that moment, Shuvi's true killing move was also ready. I was waiting for this moment. Unveil Pseudo-Arcanum, Howling Dragon. A dark magical formation unfolded behind Shuvi. The cannon in her hands gathered a scorching, immense energy, which in an instant, poured forth towards Jibril. This was an attack learned several years ago during the Ex Machina's collective subjugation of one of the leaders of the dragon species, the Howling Dragon, said to rival the god race in power. However, due to being an analyzer, the attack's energy was far from sufficient. According to Shuvi's calculations, such an attack still couldn't defeat Jibril. Just as Shuvi planned to continue buying time with follow-up attacks, she found she could no longer locate her target. Shuvi turned her head to look. Jibril had actually used spatial abilities to teleport behind her and was swinging her scythe down. Just as the scythe was about to touch Shuvi's body, Jibril found she couldn't bring it down. A strong, powerful hand caught the descending scythe. Zeus had arrived on the battlefield. Jibril looked at this person who had so easily stopped her attack. His powerful aura sent a chill down her spine. With a flash, she created distance. An unknown powerhouse. I see. Is this special ex machina your creation? No. Shuvi became this special through her own will. Jibril wasn't interested in Zeus's answer now. Her mind was filled with thoughts of today's great harvest, the head of a powerful being from an unknown race, perhaps also a special individual, and the head of an extremely rare, unique special individual. Today was truly a huge gain. Her beautiful face twisted by surging bloodlust, Jibril brandished the scythe formed from condensed spirits and charged at Zeus. The powerful swing, capable of tearing space itself, was lightly caught between two of Zeus's outstretched fingers, unable to advance an inch. Then, with a flick of those two fingers, Jibril was sent flying back by immense force. Skimming across the sea like a skipping stone, she tumbled for hundreds of miles before barely coming to a stop. As soon as she steadied herself, Jibril, empowered by a spell, lunged at Zeus once more. Not fleeing in fear, but charging at me again. It was precisely this trait, facing powerful enemies without fear, as if devoid of terror, that had allowed Jibril to defeat many foes far stronger than herself in the past, becoming a special individual among the Flugel. If I don't get close, how can I obtain your head? To show respect, Zeus decided this time to use his most favored weapon, the Great Thunder, to deliver upon Jibril the whip named Defeat. Under the terrifying violence of the Great Thunder, even with Zeus restraining his strength, the scythe formed from Jibril's spirit power was easily shattered. Unparalleled light and heat coursed through every fiber of Jibril's being, thoroughly mangling the inside of her body. But the greed and bloodthirst in Jibril's eyes as she stared at Zeus remained unchanged. O unknown powerhouse, witness my final strike. Even though her body was already broken beyond repair, and launching this attack might mean her immediate death, Jibril still used without hesitation the power bestowed upon all Flugel by their creator, Artosh, power sufficient to burn the entire sea, the heavenly strike. The halo above Jibril's head suddenly expanded, turning from white to pure color. The wings behind her turned purple-black, pulsing with veins to channel spirit power. The immense force caused the air itself to converge towards her. Heavenly strike. As Jibril's voice fell, the heavenly strike crashed down fiercely upon Zeus. But this time, Jibril's desperate all-out strike did not, as usual, decisively end the battle and kill an enemy far surpassing her in strength. As a bolt of lightning thrown from Zeus's hand pierced straight through the heavenly strike, cracks spread from the hole made by the lightning until finally the entire heavenly strike completely dissipated. A shrunken Jibril crashed heavily to the ground. Shuvi and Zeus approached the fallen Jibril. You've lost. What an incredible powerhouse. Yes, I've lost. Go ahead. Jibril closed her eyes and offered her neck for the killing blow. But Zeus had other plans for the Flugel. In his eyes, compared to bloodthirsty berserkers on the battlefield, the Flugel's innate talent as scholars was more valuable. Among them, the special individual Jibril was particularly unique. Compared to other Flugel, she possessed a heart that could defy orders. In other words, she was freer and more creative than other individuals. This trait, combined with her racial talent, if properly utilized, could become what is called a genius emanator of knowledge. After a while, not feeling her life force fading, Jibril opened her eyes in confusion. Why? I need you. Impossible. Everything I have was bestowed by Lord Artosh. Here, I have endless knowledge and ceaseless battle. Hearing Zeus's words, Jibril was visibly shaken. What is your creator Artosh's greatest wish? To find someone who can defeat him. Jibril, who had answered Zeus's question almost reflexively, suddenly widened her eyes, then calmed down again. You want to challenge Lord Artosh? Right, perhaps you could achieve victory. After Artosh's defeat, have you thought about what will become of the Flugel? What a strange question. Lord Artosh being defeated, it's something I never dared imagine. But when that time comes, my sisters would probably commit suicide one after another. I should be no exception. You don't want to see your sisters commit suicide, do you? Indeed. But we are Lord Artosh's weapons. If the master dies, the weapons have no reason to exist. In the original work, Artosh likely had feelings for the Flugel. Before disappearing, he specifically found a reason to let them live on. I will ask him for you. I will inherit his concept and continue to wield you. Upon hearing Zeus's words, the way Jibril looked at Zeus changed, shifting from viewing a strange powerhouse to scrutinizing her new master. If you can truly accomplish that, then I will wait with anticipation for the day the day you wield me. As expected, all races unwilling to participate in the war fled from the Lucia continent, which was about to become a battlefield, and its surrounding regions. Meanwhile, the three core races of the war doubled down, or rather, invested everything. On one side, the elf and the fairy race formed an alliance. To counter the dwarf's aerial fleet, they also increased the number of contracts with the dragon species. On the other side, the dwarf, besides their good relations with the giant race, also recruited a large number of phantasm race as allies. The two major factions, wary of each other's god-slaying weapons, occupied the Lucia continent as their base and confronted each other. There resided the world's current strongest power, the Artosh faction, which possessed the Flugel. As for the Flugel and their creator Artosh, they remained inactive as usual, quietly awaiting the two challengers. Under the suppression of the Star Cup, in this world that had endured countless years of war, no one could defeat Artosh, who held the concept of war. Relying on the concept of war, Artosh was always stronger than his enemies. It could be said that no one in this world could defeat him in a direct confrontation. However, the Star Cup still had not appeared before him. He was not yet strong enough to be judged as the strongest power in this world. If the strongest, Artosh, is not strong enough, then what kind of power could make the Star Cup manifest? If Artosh's divine strike is insufficient, then add Canis's Void Zero Sanctuary and Auken's corpse explosion. If that is still not enough, there is also Zeus's great thunder. Such immense power is enough to pierce the spirit corridor. In a sense, this is power that can oppose the world itself. Zeus, along with Riku and Shuvi, had gathered all the power that could be assembled in their plan. What was lacking now was how to reproduce and utilize this power. A singular love is selfish, no one wishes to share their love with others. However, for the sake of victory, Shuvi once proactively proposed reconnecting with the Ex Machina to share this hard-won heart and love with them. This proposal was, of course, rejected by Zeus. According to the plan, to use the power sufficient to manifest the Star Cup, the Ars Arsenal was needed. To obtain the Ars Arsenal, besides gaining permission from the highest authority Ex Machina individual, there was another method, a life form with higher authority than all Ex Machina existed. The creator of the Ex Machina, the god of doubt. In a distant future without Zeus, she was given the name Hanru Hollow. The original prototypes of the current Ex Machina were 5 small machines she created to observe and analyze the world, intended to be infinite interlocutors for the questions she generated. Even the original 5 small machines could not answer all questions. The inability to define the self plunged Hanru into deep self-doubt. Doubts about her own existence once drove her to shatter her own divine core and fall into slumber. Now, Zeus had awakened her once more. After negotiating with the Ex Machina, Zeus obtained a corpse, or rather, it was more like a certain lingering concept. Using this lingering concept as the core, he crafted a body for Hanru capable of withstanding the consciousness of her revived divine core. I have already shattered my own divine core and fallen into eternal slumber. Unknown life form, have you awakened me because you can answer my questions? Of course. How will you convey the answers to me? Through language, data, or some other medium? If love directed at a single individual is selfish, then love directed at countless individuals, that is, towards a group, is selfless and can be shared. Zeus gently lifted Hanru's chin with his right hand. How is the interaction of heart transmitted? Since the primitive dawn of civilization, contact between limbs and mucous membranes has conveyed emotions that language and records cannot fully express. At this moment, Zeus intended to use this method to tell Hanru what heart is and its core, love. Through intimate contact, Hanru experienced the heart from Zeus and his vast love, attachment to a mother, passion for a wife, affection for children, and the selfish love uniquely belonging to Zeus for Hanru herself. In the original work, it should roughly mean this: the core meaning of heart is love. Although there was no exchange of language or written records, there was no doubt that Hanru had deeply experienced the vast and selfish love from Zeus. When this exchange of love ended, Hanru's once hollow eyes, like Shuvi's initially, became lively. As soon as the two separated, Hanru reached out, wrapped her arms around Zeus's neck, and eagerly initiated a second exchange. Is this heart? Is this love? So fulfilling, so sweet. Unknown life form, please stay by my side forever. I'm sorry, I cannot grant your request. Hearing Zeus's answer, Hanru became visibly flustered. I can agree to all your demands. Please, I beg you, stay by my side. Hanru's slender arms clung tightly to Zeus, tears welling in the corners of her eyes from anxiety and fear. After enduring countless doubts and questions, the heart and love she had finally obtained had become the most important things in Hanru's heart, even surpassing the life she had long since abandoned. Her current life was merely a necessary vessel for Hanru to experience heart and love. Zeus turned and embraced Hanru, who was afraid he would leave, gently stroking her head with one hand. Under Zeus's comfort, Hanru's trembling body gradually calmed down. Hanru, with teary eyes, looked up at Zeus, the one who had given her a heart and love. Don't leave me. I can give you everything I have. Don't leave me alone. I cannot stay in this world forever. Since that is the case, become my wife, stay by my side always, and let us travel to other worlds together. Even though she was the oldest god on Disboard, Hanru had spent most of her time in slumber and didn't even know the concept of a wife. But it didn't matter, being with Zeus was enough. Okay, let's never be separated. After some time, Hanru's emotions completely calmed down. I need something to help me achieve victory, and only you have the corresponding authority. Besides the 5 small machines from back then, I have nothing left in this world. It is precisely those 5 small machines, which have now become ex machina, and they possess a weapon called the Ars Arsenal. That is what I need. For the ex machina, their purpose was to follow their creator Hanru's command to find a heart. The purpose of creating the Ars Arsenal was to obtain the Star Cup and use its power to find answers. But now that Hanru had received the answer to heart from Zeus, the ex machina's mission was complete, and the Ars Arsenal naturally became useless. With Hanru's help, Zeus easily obtained the decisive weapon from the ex machina. At this point, all preparations were complete. The final battle location. Everything is going according to plan. Received. Although Jibril returned to the Flugel stronghold without saying a word about Zeus, Azrael, the first individual and suspected mental projection of Avontheim, noticed that in addition to the damage caused by Zeus, Jibril also had injuries inflicted by the ex machina. What are these mere scraps planning? According to the pre-arranged plan, the ex machina used spatial transfer, learned from the Flugel, to arrive above the Flugel stronghold. They also used the Apocrypha, Heavenly Strike, which, though less powerful than the original, was more than sufficient as a declaration of war. While Azrael was still wondering who had launched the Heavenly Strike, the Elf and Dwarf factions, sensing an attack from Avontheim, immediately entered combat. The already tense situation, like a powder keg, was ignited by the Apocrypha, Heavenly Strike. Confirmed declaration of war from Avontheim. Prepare to launch Corpse Explosion. Void Zero Sanctuary, full spiritual formula release. Starboard toward Artosh, port toward the dwarf battleship. Even though she knew beforehand that it was not a declaration of war from Avontheim, Clammy Zelnibel still gave the order to release Void Zero Sanctuary. In her eyes, the Star Cup was irrelevant. What truly mattered was her beloved Zeus and leading the elf out of Canis's control. Moreover, this declaration of war was meticulously calculated not to harm anyone. Once the war truly began, who fired the first shot became irrelevant. The communication magic circle within Avontheim was quickly dyed purplish black, and Artosh's voice, which had not been heard for a long time, echoed across the entire continent. Azrael immediately understood that this was a signal from their creator to launch an attack. I've been waiting for a long time, my nemesis. So that's it, you intend to defeat me by relying on the fate of the strong being pulled down from the stage by the weak. Suddenly, dark clouds covered the entire continent, and purple lightning with the same spirit fluctuations as heavenly strike descended with Artosh's voice, blanketing the entire land. Am I right, God from another world? At Artosh's command, all Flugel used their spatial abilities to transfer to Avontheim and form a specialized formation. Immense power gathered above the entire continent. So confident, so powerful. If it weren't for Corpse Explosion in Void Zero Sanctuary, facing such an enemy, no one would likely have the will to resist. Recognize your insignificance, you speck of dust who only flaunts petty cleverness. As Artosh's voice continuously boomed in the sky, the energy gathered above the continent grew stronger and stronger. The storm caused by the converging energy cracked the ground, and the seawater from the ocean surged skyward with the storm. Trying to fill a well with snow, striking a rock with an egg. Even a swarm of tiny insects cannot touch the might of heaven. The immense power tore through the clouds, and the atmosphere from 10,000 li around gathered at the center of the battlefield, forming a towering vortex. Seeing the full power attack from Artosh, the strongest god race war god, about to arrive, the two major factions of Elf and Dwarf also unleashed their full power. Void Zero Sanctuary, all formulas deployed. Corpse Explosion, all missiles launched. Divine Strike. A gigantic pair of white wings unfolded in the sky, with all Flugel acting as nodes. Three powerful attacks collided, their radiating light illuminating the entire world. Finally, all the energy converged and merged, an endless heat seemingly declaring the destruction of this world. Even with the extraordinary power of Void Zero Sanctuary and Corpse Explosion, they paled in comparison to the strongest god race, Artosh. The immense energy, converging from the three powerful attacks, still slowly pushed towards the elf and dwarf forces. The plan reached a critical step. Before the war, the collision point of the attacks was estimated in advance, and corresponding deflection devices were deployed to guide the attacks in the desired direction. Then, Ex Machina were deployed in that direction for analysis. With Hanru's blessing and Zeus personally slowing down the energy's movement, the Ex Machina successfully analyzed the immense energy formed by the convergence and fusion of these three powerful attacks, without a single loss. 4,807 linked units deployed, 0 losses. Design successfully reproduced. Initiating synchronization. Small blue glowing cubes flew into the air, spinning at high speed. Activate, org.0000 Ars Arsenal. With the command issued, countless mechanical structures erupted from the small cubes, continuously deforming and reassembling until they took shape. The three individuals standing at the control panel jointly held the activation device of this ultimate weapon, a Chess King piece. As their hands pressed down heavily, a pillar of light shot from the base of the Ars Arsenal directly towards the planet's core, the source of the Spirit Corridor. At this moment, the Spirit Corridor vanished. Undoubtedly, the Ars Arsenal, piercing through the Spirit Corridor and opposing the world at this moment, was the strongest power in this world, allowing the Star Cup to manifest. The war, so long that its beginning was forgotten, finally reached its end. The ultimate victor was not the god race and the races they created, nor other higher races. Instead, it was the intellectual, nameless life forms, Amanati, who were not created by anyone, not expected by anyone, not prayed to by anyone, but evolved to their current state through their own efforts. Like the world's immune system, expelling the disease called war and bringing peace back to the world. As the war finally ending, a majestic figure within Avontheim now had a weak aura. Artosh, the god holding the concept of war, became extremely weak at the sight of imminent peace. Lord Artosh, it's alright. It's just one failure. Our sisters also have their failures. We just need to start over. Did I fail? Hearing Artosh's question, which seemed to be both an inquiry and a lament, Azriel stood dumbfounded. Even she had to admit one thing. The monkeys had won this war, and her master was about to leave this world. For individual Flugel, failure was indeed possible, but for Artosh, who embodied the concept of war, her failure meant the end of war, and naturally, there was no second chance. At this point, Zeus and his companions, having achieved victory, also ascended Avontheim and came before Artosh. Failure. This feeling is truly long overdue. God from another world, and monkeys, congratulations on defeating me. No, not monkeys. In the future, we will exist as a manatee. A manatee. At this moment, Artosh, weakened to the extreme, couldn't help but burst into laughter. Ha ha ha, are you here to mock me? Laugh all you want, it is the privilege of the strong, the privilege of the victors. Then Zeus stepped forward. You have failed. Artosh stopped laughing, her face full of emotion. Yes, I have failed. You are about to disappear. Yes, I am about to disappear. But what about your daughters, the flugel? They will follow you. Artosh paused, then looked at the flugel with loving eyes. Although the initial purpose of creating the flugel was to have a handy weapon, after such a long time together, they were no longer merely weapons in Artosh's eyes. She naturally didn't want the flugel to senselessly throw away their precious lives for her. She planned to issue the command, find the reason for my failure, and demand that the flugel not die before then. In Artosh's view, although her daughters were very intelligent, they lacked creativity, with the exception of the special individual Jibril, and would likely struggle to find the answer for the rest of their lives. Leave them to me. Artosh was surprised for a moment, then calmed down. Leave them to you. With your power, why would you need my daughters as weapons? I don't need them to exist as weapons. What you intend to do is merely give them a reason to live, but I will grant them true freedom. Is that so? Then as you wish. Artosh turned to look at Azrael. He will be your new master in the future. Artosh pointed at Zeus, declaring the ownership of the flugel. Unknown god from another world, accept my last gift from Artosh. After this, inherit my blessing and continue to be victorious. After speaking her last words, Artosh, seated on her throne, slowly dissipated. As her form vanished, the dim war slowly floated into Zeus's hand, gradually merging into his body and fusing with the divinity representing war within him. From now on, I am the new master of the flugel. Azrael. Azrael was still immersed in the sorrow of losing Artosh, and Zeus's voice startled her. Yes. Lord Zeus, do you have any commands? Go, explain the situation to your sisters and ask them to come see me. Outside, the flugel, sensing Artosh's demise, were heartbroken and prepared to follow their creator. Stop, all of you. Lord Artosh left a command. Hearing that Artosh had left a command before disappearing, everyone stopped their attempts at self-sacrifice. Our ownership has been transferred to Lord Zeus, the victor of this war. He will inherit Lord Artosh's will and continue to lead us. Led by Azrael, the flugel came before Artosh's former throne to meet their new master. Zeus sat upon Artosh's former throne. Everyone, I presume you all know that Artosh transferred your ownership to me. So, my first command, inheriting Artosh's will, is to learn. Learn. This familiar yet strange term confused the flugel. Go learn, go discover, go think, and fulfill Artosh's final expectation for you, to become free individuals. I will replace Artosh and continue to lead you like a father, continue to wield you. Yes. Hearing the expectations left by their father, Artosh, the flugel regained their spirits, a complete change from their previous despairing state. Congratulations on your final victory, my new master. Compared to the other flugel who were heartbroken to hear of Artosh's defeat, Jibril was extremely excited upon hearing the news. For her, the grand wish of her former master, Artosh, had been fulfilled, her sister's futures were settled, and her own desires would be satisfied. It was a happy ending, and one could say this was what made Jibril special compared to her sisters. As a member of the god race, Tet was born naturally divine and quickly grew to a complete state without needing to grow slowly from an infant. The next step was to establish the new laws of this world. Tet, holding the star cup, spoke to all sentient life in this world. To the 16 races that claim to possess intelligence, including a manatee. Inherit the will of the deceased with a pledge to the deceased, cancel the alliances between races, and establish the 10 covenants, based on a common will, looking up to a pledge to the covenant. 1. All murder, war, and robbery are prohibited in this world. 2. All disputes shall be resolved through game results. 3. Games must involve bets judged to be of equal value by both parties. 4. As long as it does not violate 3, the game content and bets are unrestricted. 5. The challenged party has the right to decide the game content. 6. Any bets made under a pledge to the covenant, must be strictly followed. 7. Disputes between groups should be handled by an authorized representative. 8. If any cheating is discovered during a game, it will be considered a loss. 9. In the name of God, the above rules are unchanging. 10. Let's all play together in peace. Today, at this very moment, the world has changed. Now, let the games begin. After this, the world operated in a new way. King of the Trashcan, at future eternal calamity, boss, we stopped at the Shenzhou on our way to Penacony. Something big seems to have gone wrong here. Uncle Yang and Sister Himeko find it tricky. Come and help us quickly. Arrived at the Shenzhou. It seems time is almost up. Fortunately, I've already obtained the Star Cup. After handling everything in this world, Zeus prepared to return to the Star Rail universe in a few days and head to the Shenzhou Luofu. According to the plan, he would help solve the problems of the Shenzhou Luofu in exchange for the Shenzhou Alliance backing Belobog during his battle with Zype and Louis Fleming. Otherwise, Ruanmei and Herta alone wouldn't be able to stop greedy invaders once the news of the Golden Apple Tree leaked. Through final discussions, only Jibril and Hanru would follow Zeus back to the Star Rail universe. Riku, Shuvi, and Corone stayed in this world to pave the way for the development of a manatee. Clammy Zelnibel had to lead her people to escape the control of Canas. The rest of the Flugel stayed in this world to learn knowledge and help handle emergencies. Hanru shared the broad love she received from Zeus with all the ex machina, keeping the selfish love for herself, and letting them pursue their own selfish love. To celebrate the end of the war, Zeus held the largest music party since arriving in this world. At first, it was just Riku and Shuvi. As the two collapsed due to exhaustion or CPU overheating, Corone took over. Once Corone was filled up, Clammy Zelnibel arrived at the party. Then came the Flugel who heard the noise. The Flugel, who had spent their lives in endless slaughter since birth, had only seen such behavior in books and were naturally curious about the actual operation. Encouraged by Jibril, Azriel led the way to participate in Zeus's music party. But who was Zeus? He was the male of males, the man among men. Even after going through several people, his edge remained sharp, and he defeated all the Flugel, letting the girls experience the magical and wonderful knowledge from the books firsthand. It is said that after this, the Flugel would have relevant exchange gatherings every once in a while, sometimes personally hosted by Zeus. After each exchange, all the Flugel girls would be flushed and disheveled, and the room would look as if it had been flooded. Finally, there was the strongest female of this music party, the god of doubt, Hanru. Just like her name, she sought Zeus as if she were a bottomless void. Even if her musical performance skills were rusty, it didn't matter. Lord Zeus would patiently teach her how to master the 18 martial arts of musical performance to become a master at the party. Finally, this music party that lasted 3 days and 3 nights ended successfully, and everyone was satisfied. The next day, Zeus set off for the Star Rail universe through the portal with the Star Cup, Jibril, and Hanru. This time, because he brought 2 extra people, Zeus tearfully sold 30 Divine Zeus units, and his inventory suddenly dropped by nearly half. Shuvi stood alone on the cliff, looking into the distance with a calm face, thinking about something. Mama Shuvi, what are you thinking about? Suddenly, Tet appeared behind Shuvi without warning, floating in the sky with her legs crossed, playing non-stop on Disboard's first game console. Machines can't have children, can they? What? For a moment, Tet doubted what she had heard. Shuvi also wants to be like Riku and bear a child for Zeus. My birth wasn't a physical birth process. A real birth process involves the soul and body being born together. I had a vague soul first and then a body was born based on that soul. Besides, doesn't father, that big pervert, have no way to have children normally right now? But what about later? Others can bear offspring for Zeus, but Shuvi can't. Shuvi also wants to bear a real child for him. Tet put down the game console and looked at her mother. So you want to? Reincarnation can preserve the current soul while giving Shuvi a body that can bear children for Zeus, right? Ah. Zeus and the other 2 returned to Belobog through the chat group's cross-world portal, then planned to go to the Herta space station for final arrangements before heading to the Shenzhou Luofu. Unlike taking the Astral Express, which can reach a new world instantly on the Star Rail, taking the spaceship requested from Asta and placed in Belobog requires several transfers to reach the destination. In such a voyage, due to the activities of different celestial bodies in the universe, there are only a few safe passages besides the routes left by the path of Trailblaze. If they took the safe passages, by the time they reached the Shenzhou Luofu, everything would already be over. Thus, Zeus used divine fire forge, myriad creation to reforge the spaceship, integrating great thunder into it. This greatly increased its speed and durability, allowing it to tear through planets in its path. As a cost, the ordinary materials of the ship would likely be scrapped after this single journey. While Zeus was joyfully speeding through the sea of stars, he discovered a large field of fleet wreckage ahead. A small shuttle was sending out a distress signal, pursued by a calamity vanguard leading several groups of Antimatter Legion Void Rangers. Zeus originally didn't care. After all, those who didn't take regular routes were usually up to no good. Even if they were in a hurry, few would dare joke with their lives without great skill. Only desperate outlaws fearing checkpoints would take such risks, and they might as well fight it out with the Antimatter Legion. However, Zeus caught sight of a flag inadvertently. It was actually the banner of the Shenzhou Luofu. Why would a fleet from the Shenzhou Luofu be sailing in a place like this? And someone actually dares to ambush a fleet openly flying the Shenzhou banner. But this gives me a more than sufficient excuse to intervene with the Shenzhou Luofu. Seeing the Calamity Vanguard's attack about to hit the shuttle, Zeus stepped out of the ship to intercept it. Just as he was about to use Great Thunder to easily annihilate them as usual, Jibril proactively volunteered for the task. On the way to the Herta space station, Zeus briefly introduced this world to Jibril and Hanru, focusing on the future enemies, the Interstellar Peace Corporation and the notorious Antimatter Legion. Hey, Master, let me see to what extent I can exert my strength in this world. Before Zeus could even agree, Jibril charged forward. Her pitch-black scythe swung wildly. With every flash of a dark shadow, large swaths of Void Rangers were dismembered. The rescued group from the Shenzhou Luofu was then settled onto the spaceship Zeus was piloting. As the shuttle's hatch opened, several Foxian women emerged from the cabin. Before the steam from the opening hatch could dissipate, a cry of, "Benefactor Tilda," reached Zeus's ears. The voice was as ethereal as cicada silk, light and graceful, winding and blurry, as if a goose feather was lightly tickling his ear. It gave Zeus only one sensation, itchy. This humble girl is Tingyan. I thank you, benefactor, for your assistance. Might I ask for your great name? My name is Zeus. This one beside me is Hanru, and the one fighting the Antimatter Legion outside is Jibril. They are both my wives. Compared to the other two, Tingyan had seen Zeus's name in intelligence regarding the Herta space station. He possessed powerful lightning-wielding abilities and was closely associated with Herta, the Genius Society's emanator of erudition. So it is Lord Zeus and his two wives. I have long heard of your great name. Before she could finish her sentence, a mouthful of blood sprayed from Tingyan's mouth, and she collapsed, losing consciousness. Although she was lucky enough to be rescued by Zeus and escape with her life, she had already been heavily injured when the attack occurred. Having received only basic emergency medical treatment, Tingyan could no longer hold on. Whether out of pity for a beauty or as a way to intervene with the Shenzhou Luofu, Zeus was going to save Tingyan now. Zeus extended a finger, the current at the tip flickering slightly. As he gently pressed his finger against Tingyan's chest, that wisp of lightning slowly merged into her body. As the lightning moved continuously through Tingyan's body, her breathing stabilized, and her pale face, which had just spit blood and collapsed, began to regain some color. Back when Zeus led the colonial fleet on the Great Galactic Expedition, he had witnessed countless rare treasures on innumerable planets. Most planetary leaders ruled precisely because of these treasures. When conquering these planets, he only needed to slightly entice or promise the leader's close attendants or those harboring resentment to steal the treasures. With a slight display of divine power from Zeus, the leaders who lost their treasures would bow their heads out of guilt. From then on, Zeus knew that true strength could only rely on oneself. By utilizing the properties of Great Thunder, he discovered he could use lightning to stimulate the body. Under the stimulation of electricity, the biological magnetic field could be altered, allowing for greater power in battle and rapid healing when injured. Zeus named this power magnetic field rotation and spread it throughout the universe. The lightning used to treat Tingyan now was a perfect application of magnetic field power. By stimulating the cells, it ensured cellular activity and accelerated wound repair. However, because Tingyan's own physical constitution was too poor, a stimulation method that could revive the dead or regrow flesh on Zeus could only barely keep her alive. Herta, who had learned of Zeus's arrival early on, was waiting at the space station entrance with Ruan Mei. Once the ship was steadily docked and Zeus and his group stepped out of the hatch, Herta, who had originally wanted to pour out her longing for Zeus and subtly show off to Ruan Mei, stood dazed on the spot, not knowing what to do. Instead, Ruan Mei stepped forward with an unfazed expression to greet Zeus. Welcome back, Mr. Zeus. May I ask who these ladies are? Compared to the strangely dressed Jibril and Hanru, Ruan Mei was more concerned about the Foxians behind Zeus who were dressed in Shenzhou attire. She had originally intended to use her connections within the Shenzhou alliance to help Zeus build a friendly relationship with them, but now it seemed unnecessary. Zeus stepped forward and picked up Herta in one go. While Herta shyly pounded on his chest, he turned to explain to Ruan Mei. They are people from the Shenzhou Alliance's Minghuo merchant group whom I encountered on the way to the Herta space station. It's said they were attacked by the Lord Ravager Phantylia during their voyage and were forced into a dangerous star lane, where I happened to meet and rescue them. Mr. Zeus, Miss Tingyan's physical condition has started to decline again. During the voyage, Zeus had used magnetic field power multiple times to stimulate Tingyan's cells and barely keep her alive. As the number of treatments increased, the healing effect grew weaker. Fortunately, they had arrived at the space station in time. Tingyan was rushed into the space station's emergency room. With the help of high-end medical equipment and Ruan Mei, an expert in the field of life, the originally dying Tingyan was brought back from the brink. To be honest, Tingyan is really miserable. The Minghuo guild she managed was torched by Phantylia. Before she could go home, Phantylia caused a huge mess using her identity, and her house might have been smashed by Hoele. If she hadn't connected with the Astral Express, she would be back to square one overnight. Outside the operating room, Ruan Mei, Herta, and Zeus looked at Tingyan on the hospital bed. Tingyan of the Minghuo merchant group. I've heard of her. According to the news sent back by Xing, the one hosting them was this Foxian. But the strange thing is, the one lying here is also the Tingyan of the Minghuo merchant group. So, who exactly is the one impersonating her in the Shenzhou? At this moment, inside the ward, Tingyan slowly opened her eyes. Where am I? Miss Tingyan, this is the medical room of the Herta space station. How are you feeling now? Seeing Tingyan wake up, the three of them entered the ward. Benefactor, Tingyan was about to speak when she turned her head and saw Herta and Ruan Mei. Although Zeus was actually stronger, Herta and Ruan Mei had been famous in this universe for a long time as members of the Genius Society. Tingyan, who had built the Minghuo merchant group from scratch, was very observant. Judging by the order in which they entered the room, with Zeus in front and the two geniuses following behind, her benefactor's identity must be even more extraordinary. Compared to her initial desire to use some social techniques to gain Zeus's favor, Tingyan became very restrained after realizing Zeus was a super big shot. Miss Tingyan, are you alright? After hearing that Tingyan had woken up, the remaining survivors of the Minghuo merchant group immediately came to the infirmary. They could be considered Tingyan's direct subordinates within the Minghuo merchant group. Many had been personally promoted by her, and their livelihoods and futures were closely tied to hers. My apologies. The members of my merchant group were simply too concerned about me and lost their manners before you all. I apologize on their behalf. Alright, you all head out first. The other members of the merchant group, coming to their senses, bowed in apology one after another. After confirming that Tingyan was out of danger, they left the infirmary. Originally, since my benefactor saved me, I should have done my utmost to repay you even though the Minghuo merchant group's fleet was destroyed. But now it seems that even if the fleet were still here, there would be nothing I possess that my benefactor would find worthy. The only thing I have left to offer now is myself. Even though her spirits were low and her words were full of reverence, that pitiful posture and ethereal, charming voice made Zeus's heart itch. It was no wonder King Zhou loved foxes so much back then. Actually, Zeus felt a bit ashamed. Originally, Ruan Mei should have been able to save Tingyan sooner if not for him. But because of his plan, Ruan Mei's itinerary was changed. If he hadn't paid attention and rushed over at that time, Tingyan might have lost her life. Seeing Zeus about to let his small head control his big head and agree immediately, Herta, standing behind him, couldn't take it anymore. She reached out her small hand, pinched a piece of flesh on Zeus's waist, and gave it a hard twist. Although this small movement was harmless to Zeus, he knew Herta was jealous and a bit upset, so he still pretended to be in great pain, shouting and begging Herta for mercy. As soon as Zeus stepped off the ship, Herta had already been somewhat displeased. Besides the Foxians of the Shenzhou Luofu, there were two unfamiliar beautiful girls by his side. Moreover, the girl dressed as an Edo Star Shrine maiden didn't even acknowledge a genius like her. Her gaze toward Zeus was practically dripping with affection. Now, she and Ruanmei were putting all their effort into Zeus's plan, yet this guy was doing this. Ever since Belobog, he hadn't really sealed his Eros back up. Those two hadn't been explained clearly yet, and now he couldn't even walk straight upon seeing a new beautiful girl, making her fuming with rage. Seeing this scene, Tingyan was also a bit surprised. She didn't know Hanru's background, but she vividly remembered Jibril wiping out the pursuing Calamity Vanguards and Antimatter Legion Void Rangers as if she were mowing grass. Having such a powerful wife while also seemingly having an ambiguous relationship with Herta, her benefactor had truly refreshed the upper limit of her understanding once again. If that's the case, can I also? Zeus's handsome appearance and his act of saving her from a dire situation had deeply branded themselves into the Foxian girl's heart. Realizing that Zeus was also interested in her, a small thought popped up in Tingyan's mind. Even though she knew Zeus was acting, Herta's anger mostly dissipated. Next, it was time for business. Herta walked up to Tingyan. You say you are Tingyan, but according to the news I received from the Trailblazers of the Astral Express, they were also received by a Foxian girl named Tingyan when they entered the Shenzhou. But there is no doubt that you are the real one. Tell us, what happened to your merchant group on the way? Hearing Herta's question, Tingyan also snapped out of her private thoughts. Realizing the gravity of the situation, she began to explain to Herta how her merchant group had unexpectedly encountered Eon of Nihility Herta during their journey. Sensing that Eon of Nihility Herta's target might be me, I took a few confidants and steered a skiff out of the safe navigation route, ordering the others to scatter and flee. Sure enough, it lured Phantylia into pursuit. But strangely, except for the initial attack from Phantylia that severely damaged the skiff and left me heavily injured, Phantylia did not continue the pursuit personally, only sending her subordinate Calamity Vanguards and Void Rangers to continue the chase. Phantylia is known among the Lord Ravagers for manipulating human hearts. This attack on you was likely intended to use your identity to stir up internal strife in the Shenzhou. She probably stopped pursuing you personally for fear that there might be some special teleportation device in your fleet that would let someone escape. After determining you wouldn't last more than a few days, she only sent her subordinates after you. That must be it. If it weren't for the medicine given to me by a friend on the path of abundance in the Shenzhou and the help of my benefactor, her conspiracy would likely have succeeded. Realizing Phantylia's conspiracy, Tingyan became visibly panicked. Please inform the Shenzhou Luofu quickly. Although I have no ability to repay my benefactor, the Shenzhou Luofu will certainly not mistreat you. Unfortunately, communication between the Shenzhou Luofu and the outside world has been cut off. Hearing that they couldn't contact the Shenzhou Luofu in time, Tingyan stood there in despair. Thinking about Phantylia using her identity to cause chaos in the Shenzhou, even though Phantylia would eventually be dealt with thanks to the strength of the Shenzhou Alliance and the protection of the Hunt Eon Lan, Tingyan felt that her life was over given the destruction and impact caused in the meantime. Human hearts are like that. The damage caused by Phantylia using Tingyan's identity wouldn't simply vanish with a sentence like, "That was Phantylia in disguise." The pain and hatred of those harmed wouldn't just dissipate. Even though Tingyan was also a victim, others would use her as an outlet for their pain and hatred when they couldn't retaliate against Phantylia. So I've decided to go to the Shenzhou Luofu personally. Miss Tingyan, are you willing to come with me? For Tingyan at this moment, the answer was obvious. Not long ago, in a secret courtyard on the Shenzhou Luofu. How about it? Cooperate with me to obtain the divine power of the ambrosial arbor, and your heavenly flaw can be cured. You're not Tingyan. Who exactly are you? If you agree to cooperate with me, I will naturally tell you my identity, Chief Alchemist, or should I say, the Ascended, leader of the Myriad Jade Secret. There was no doubt this person was an enemy of the Shenzhou Luofu, but it didn't matter. This Chief Alchemist had long been in the Shenzhou in body but in abundance in heart. It seemed this person was extraordinary, even able to discover her true identity. If she didn't agree today, she would likely be reported to the Shenzhou Luofu. Born with a heavenly flaw, she had suffered cold shoulders and skepticism in the Shenzhou Luofu since childhood. Yaoxi's blessing for the Shenzhou people granted them powerful vitality and longevity, but accordingly, tissues and organs not belonging to the original body would be instinctively rejected by the body's powerful vitality, unless they were of great significance, like the current Grand Diviner Fuzan of the Divination Commission, and could be implanted through special surgery. Even then, one had to endure the pain of instinctive rejection day and night. She had spent far more effort than others to reach this position despite the scorn and doubt, yet she still couldn't obtain a pair of eyes to observe the world. Since the problem lay in the blessing given by the Eon of Abundance, Danshu decided to seek power from abundance to heal her heavenly flaw. Thus, she misappropriated the name of the Myriad Jade Secret, which had once been defined as a terrorist organization by the Shenzhou, to attract greedy individuals who craved longevity, hoping that one day her wish would be fulfilled. And this was the perfect opportunity. She had long craved the power of the ambrosial arbor, the greatest blessing on the Shenzhou from the great Eon of Abundance, the merciful Medicus. This was the power most likely to cure her heavenly flaw. However, the Shenzhou Luofu had always strictly guarded the ambrosial arbor. Trying to steal its power solely with her status as chief alchemist was as difficult as climbing to heaven. She indeed needed allies to increase her strength, but not just anyone was qualified to be her ally. To that end, she decided to slightly test this person wearing Tingyan's skin. Danshu waved her cloak, and a guiding wind infused with the power of abundance blew toward Phantylia, who was wearing Tingyan's skin. Knowing that Danshu was testing her strength, even though in the eyes of Phantylia, the Lord Ravager and Emanator of Destruction, the current Danshu was nothing more than a slightly larger ant, she didn't mind playing along to practice her aesthetics of destruction. Phantylia lightly snapped her fingers, and the guiding wind was split apart a few centimeters in front of her, blowing to both sides. With another wave of the fan in her hand, an energy blast containing the power of destruction directly hit Danshu's abdomen, sending her flying backward into a wall. Fortunately, this place was secret and secluded, so it didn't attract anyone else's attention. The power of destruction from the energy blast attached itself to Danshu's abdomen. Even as a Shenzhou person with powerful vitality who had also obtained the ascended power of abundance, Danshu was shocked to find that her injuries actually couldn't recover. Such powerful destruction. Who are you? Eon of Nihility Herta. An emanator of destruction. Instead of being afraid, the injured Danshu became excited. With Phantylia, an emanator of destruction, pinning down the Shenzhou Luofu's military forces would be more than enough. Then she could easily obtain the divine power of abundance from the ambrosial arbor. Phantylia could fulfill her aesthetics of destruction by destroying the Shenzhou Luofu, while Danshu could realize her great wish. It was a win-win. I agree to cooperate with you. Do you have a plan? Just act according to your original plan. I will step in to help you when necessary. After speaking, Phantylia withdrew the destruction energy attached to Danshu and left the small courtyard. After using materials from the Herta space station to reinforce the ship for a second time, Zeus took Tingyan, Jibril, and Hanru toward the Shenzhou Luofu. As they were about to enter the range of the Shenzhou Luofu, Zeus suddenly felt a tightening in his chest and slammed on the ship's brakes. Scratches from an attack appeared on the ship's surface without warning. The next second, a beam of light struck from an unknown location, grazing the ship at a position that perfectly matched the scratches. The scratches appeared first, followed by the attack that caused them. Moreover, it makes me feel extreme danger yet I cannot lock onto the enemy. This level of power and the trait of effect before cause can only belong to the Hunt Eon Lan. Compared to the ignored Geralovi, the Shenzhou Alliance is blessed by the Hunt Eon Lan. For the entire Shenzhou Alliance, if someone of Zeus's caliber entered the Shenzhou without sealing their power, the destruction and blow dealt to the Shenzhou Alliance should they turn hostile would make former emanators of abundance, living planets, and the Horizon War leader Hoale seem like mere pebbles before a mountain. They simply couldn't be compared to Zeus. Understanding Lan's attitude, Zeus had no choice but to seal his power to the level of an ordinary emanator before he felt the aura aiming at him vanish. Afterward, the group successfully landed on the Shenzhou Luofu, seeing not a single cloud knight during the process. A few days before Zeus arrived at the Shenzhou, Danshu and Phantylia, in order to distract the Cloud Knights and facilitate their plan, had been secretly releasing people from the Myriad Jade Secret who had already fallen into the Mara-struck state across the Shenzhou Luofu. This caused massive destruction and casualties, while they spread malicious rumors to slander the Cloud Knights and the Hunt Eon, preaching that the Eon of Abundance, the merciful Medicus, was the only salvation. The frequent occurrence of violent attacks and the spread of bewitching rumors forced the Cloud Knights to reduce unnecessary duties and concentrate their forces on maintaining public order within the Shenzhou Luofu. Ruan Mei and Herta had communicated before the Shenzhou Luofu lost contact with the outside world, which made Fantilia wary. While the general was talking with the Astral Express group and issuing the mission to capture the Stellar Hunter Kafka, she sabotaged the matrix of prescience, causing the Divination Commission to be temporarily paralyzed. And now, although Kafka had allowed herself to be caught and was quickly brought to the Divination Commission, she could only be held in temporary custody because the matrix of prescience had been sabotaged. The outside world had lost contact with the Shenzhou Luofu, but internal communication devices could still run by relying on the local infrastructure of the Shenzhou. Zeus soon got in touch with Stel. Big shot, you're finally here. We're in a deadlock. The matrix of prescience was allegedly sabotaged by a terrorist organization called the Myriad Jade Secret. We can't prove our innocence, come help us quickly. Just as the call ended, Stel sent over her location. Zeus arranged for Tingyan to go to the Skyfaring Commission to find her old acquaintance Yukong, sending Jibril along for protection, while he used his status as a trailblazer to head to the Divination Commission without hindrance. Lady Fuzan, according to our agreement, we have captured the Stellar Hunter Kafka and handed her over to the Shenzhou Luofu. This should be enough to prove our innocence. Why are you still not letting us participate in solving the Stellar problem? Fuzan had also not expected the matrix of prescience to be sabotaged. Originally, she only needed to capture Kafka and use the matrix of prescience to calculate everything, and the truth of their innocence would naturally come to light. As for solving the Stellar problem, she never intended to let these outsiders from the Astral Express get involved from the start. Looking at the plot, Yukong's attitude should have been the primary attitude within the Shenzhou Luofu at first. It was only after Fuzan used the matrix of prescience to calculate Kafka and discovered there was an inside story that she let the Trailblazers group join. Fuzan was now in a difficult position, unable to tell the truth or continue stalling. Just then, Zeus made his appearance. I can repair this matrix of prescience. Fuzan was about to refuse when she was stopped by Jing Yuan. Originally, a major matter like repairing the matrix of prescience should have been reported by the Divination Commission to the General's Manor, then sent by the General's Manor to the Alliance Marshal for approval before work could begin. But now, the Stellar matter was imminent, and there were suspicions that the Myriad Jade Secret was resurging within the Shenzhou Luofu, leaving the entire ship short-staffed. Acting blindly without definitive evidence, even if the one being dealt with was a Stellar Hunter, would severely damage the reputation of the Shenzhou Alliance. And if they continued to assign people to guard her, the already tight manpower situation would only worsen. Furthermore, the situation desperately required the matrix of prescience, not just for the Stellar Hunter Kafka and the Trailblazers of the Astral Express, but also for the Shenzhou Luofu itself. Jing Yuan personally led Zeus to the Matrix of Prescience video terminal, where one could overlook the situation of various parts of the Matrix. As the god of human civilization of the Azure Brilliant Galaxy from the Type Moon world, Zeus's machine god core, Phanes, could even independently realize complex large-scale projects like several simulated universes under his full output and conceptual empowerment. Not to mention he had the help of Hanru, who had once created the famous Ex Machina. A mere matrix of prescience was naturally no problem. After just a few glances, Zeus and Hanru finalized the repair plan. While commanding the Automatons, Stel gave Jing Yuan a detailed introduction of Zeus. This is the big shot from our Astral Express, his great thunder is unparalleled in the world. He didn't come with us at first, but now that he's here, solving the Stellarn will be much easier. Of all the things Stel said, Jing Yuan only really heard two. One was that he was very powerful, and the other was that he had essentially entered the Shenzhou Luofu illegally. Although Zeus had docked at the Shenzhou Luofu without permission, an illegal entry that would normally result in both person and ship being detained for inspection, these were extraordinary times, so such a small matter didn't matter. Furthermore, a while ago, Ms. Ruan Mei of the Genius Society, who was born in the Shenzhou Alliance, had contacted the Shenzhou Alliance Marshal Hua. The matter they discussed privately seemed to be related to him. Moreover, according to Stel's introduction, his strength was extraordinary, possessing the power to command lightning. Though it might sound a bit harsh, the strong always have privileges. And best of all, according to Jing Yuan's observations, Zeus's bond with the Astral Express wasn't as deep as the trio's. Part of the reason some within the Shenzhou Luofu were unwilling to let them interfere was that many were witnesses to the High Elder's molting right back then. Although he had changed his name to Dan Heng, in some people's eyes, he hadn't changed at all. His and the Astral Express's involvement would only make the situation more complex, and might even lead the Vidyadhara into a civil war before the current issue was resolved. Zeus was just right. Although he had connections with the Astral Express, they weren't deep, so he naturally wouldn't be entangled in Dan Heng's issues. Furthermore, he had a connection to the Shenzhou alliance through Ruan Mei, so he wasn't a complete outsider. The possibility and intensity of being held accountable later would be much smaller. While Zeus and Hanru were repairing the matrix of prescience, the returned Tingyan and Yukong were talking at the Sky-faring Commission. Tingyan, what's wrong? You're in such a panic. Tingyan told Yukong about how she was attacked by Aeon of Nihility Herta during her merchant travels, causing her to be separated from the fleet, and how Phantylia then impersonated her to infiltrate the Shenzhou, intending to stir up internal conflicts. Yukong was greatly shocked upon hearing this. But then a new problem arose. How could Tingyan prove she was the real Tingyan? Tingyan had no choice but to blush and speak of the private conversations she'd had with Yukong in the past, things that Phantylia indeed wouldn't know, such as what kind of partner she wanted in the future. Originally, Tingyan had long forgotten such things after immersing herself in her merchant career. Even she had nearly forgotten them, let alone Phantylia being able to read them from her memories. If not for Zeus's appearance causing her heart to flutter once more, she might not have remembered ever discussing such matters with Yukong. Before this part of the conversation, not wanting to be overheard by others, Tingyan sent Jibril away. Jibril, who was already dazzled by the Shenzhou but had to follow Tingyan due to her master Zeus's orders, was told to go play outside on her own. Having verified Tingyan's true identity, Yukong and Tingyan immediately decided to split up. Yukong, using her status as the Helm Master of the Sky-faring Commission, would summon the Cloud Knights to increase the defensive forces at the Ambrosial Arbor. Tingyan, on the other hand, would go find Jibril to help evacuate the surrounding citizens, avoiding casualties among the residents near the Ambrosial Arbor, which was about to become the final battlefield. According to Yukong and Tingyan's subsequent plan, they would intercept Phantylia before the Ambrosial Arbor and defeat her there by gathering the entire power of the Shenzhou Luofu. However, Dan Shu, who could climb her way up to chief alchemist and turn the alchemy commission into a nest for the myriad jade secret, was naturally not simple. She had already planted spies in the other 5 commissions and secretly bribed a group of people who yearned for immortality. Since Tingyan was too flustered and anxious, she forgot to avoid these potential eyes for a moment, and naturally, the news of Tingyan's return was leaked to Dan Shu, who was currently plotting for the Ambrosial Arbor. What's going on? Didn't you say you dealt with Tingyan? How did she run back? Now they're going to strengthen the defenses at the Ambrosial Arbor, making it even harder to obtain the miracle of abundance. I didn't expect that little fox to be so lucky. But it doesn't matter, the Ambrosial Arbor is about to mature here, and didn't I already find countermeasures for you? In the eyes of Phantylia, who still didn't know of Zeus's existence, Tingyan had most likely encountered a pathstrider like a Galaxy Ranger or a Knight of Beauty during her escape, who helped her deal with the pursuit from the Calamity Vanguard. That can only deal with ordinary Cloud Knight soldiers. It won't be of much use against real experts, especially those pathstriders who aren't Shenzhou locals. With them joining in, how are we supposed to steal the miracle of abundance? Don't worry, I will handle it for you. You just need to act according to the plan. Phantylia herself also craved using the miracle of abundance to fashion a body, so she naturally had no intention of sharing the fruit of the Ambrosial Arbor with Dan Shu. She had originally planned to let Dan Shu delay for time at the last moment while she took it for herself. Saying this now was merely to get Dan Shu to obediently hold the line for her. However, in Dan Shu's eyes, why would the incredibly powerful Lord Ravager need any miracle of abundance? She had only come to the Shenzhou to practice her aesthetics of destruction. Since their goals did not conflict, Dan Shu was not on her guard. But for the plan to proceed smoothly, Phantylia had to personally delay for a while until the Ambrosial Arbor revived. Thus, she seized the moment when Tingyan and Yukong were separated and Jibril had not yet returned to appear at the Sky-faring Commission. Tingyan, naturally delicate in thought, discovered another version of herself appearing at the Sky-faring Commission. She immediately realized that a mistake had occurred because she was too hasty and forgot to avoid potential spies. Now that Yukong had already led troops to the Ambrosial Arbor, and she had no special items on her that could allow Jibril to verify her true identity, Phantylia, who was well prepared, could perfectly mimic her speech and mannerisms, making it impossible for Jibril to tell them apart. I can't tell them apart at all like this. Whatever, I'll just leave it to Master. He'd probably be very happy that one fox spirit turned into two, right? After saying that, no longer caring about various prohibitions as she had before, she directly used Heavenly Shift to arrive at the Divination Commission, bringing both Tingyan and the Phantylia disguised Tingyan before Zeus. Master, look, I've turned your one fox spirit into two. Although Jibril spoke in a tone as if this were a surprise she had prepared, her shifting gaze and constantly fluttering wings couldn't hide her guilt. Looking at the two Tingyans that had appeared and Jibril's guilty expression, Zeus knew she must have been too engrossed in the unknown knowledge of the Shenzhou and failed to keep an eye on Tingyan, allowing the well-prepared Phantylia to take advantage of the opening. Seeing that Jibril was of no use staying here, Zeus casually sent her off to evacuate the citizens. So why are there two Miss Tingyans? For the completely unaware Stell in March 7, the sudden appearance of two identical Tingyans made them very curious. Jing Yuan's expression was grim, as if he had eaten something foul. As the intellectual backbone of the entire Shenzhou Luofu, he had just received intelligence from Yukong saying that the previous Tingyan was impersonated by Eon of Nihility Herta. Not long after, Jibril had brought two Tingyans to the Divination Commission, and from Jibril's reaction, he could see that this woman also didn't know who was real. As for Fu Zan, it didn't matter to her, she only cared about the matrix of prescience right now. Watching the matrix of prescience being restored bit by bit under Zeus and Hanru, her attitude toward Zeus had changed significantly. The only thing she was dissatisfied with was that he and Hanru were constantly showing off their affection while repairing the array, which made her very annoyed. Especially since it was one thing for him to kiss the woman beside him, but he also cast lecherous glances at her thighs from time to time. The most infuriating part was that he first looked at Kafka's chest and nodded with satisfaction, then when he looked at her own chest, she felt like he let out a sigh. Boastful liar to capable trailblazer to lovey-dovey couple to good-looking and capable pervert, this was how Zeus's image changed in Fu Zan's eyes. At this time, the Phantylia disguised Tingyan also saw Zeus, who was repairing the matrix of prescience, and Hanru, who was assisting from the side. This man must be the one who eliminated the Calamity Vanguard I sent to pursue this little fox. And he seems very lecherous. When the time comes, I'll go up and seduce him. Even if I can't turn him, I can at least delay for a good amount of time. The matrix of prescience is fixed. The first thing to do was to find out the Stellar Hunter's true purpose. Kafka was escorted to the center of the array, and she looked curiously at this man named Zeus. A variable outside of Elio's script. Interesting. Can you give me the fear I've always dreamed of? As Fu Zan formed hand seals and the Dharma eye on her forehead flashed with light, the entire array began to operate. The crystals at the four corners of the array flashed with pink light, shooting toward the center to condense an octagonal formation. The 8 trigrams, Qian, Kan, Zhen, Xuan, Li, Kun, and Dui, each corresponded to a corner, and in the center of the formation, the pattern of the 7 stars flickered. As the Dharma eye at the array's core opened, Kafka slowly floated into the air. With the activation of the matrix of prescience, the seals in Fu Zan's hands also changed into a miniature octagonal formation. Floating in the air, Kafka looked with interest at Grand Diviner Fu Zan of the Divination Commission before her. Seeing Kafka's gaze, Fu Zan felt a bit flustered. She truly hoped to calculate that Kafka was problematic and execute her on the spot to be done with it, but Kafka's gaze suggested things weren't that simple. As the calculation ended, Fu Zan panted heavily, shocked by the facts she had seen. Meanwhile, on Zeus's side, seeing the matrix of prescience was repaired, he and Hanru stepped aside to watch another grand show. Based on the special abilities of the Suiyang, except for the difference in memories due to not having possessed Tingyan before, the two were virtually identical. Even their biological magnetic fields were exactly the same. Furthermore, Yukong, who shared small secrets with Tingyan, was not here, so their authenticity could not be verified. If Zeus hadn't sealed his power under the threat of the Hunt Eon Lan, he might have been able to use his original strength to observe their biological magnetic fields more meticulously and perhaps see who the real one was. Even though Tingyan herself was very well bred, the current situation was critical, and she was under great mental pressure. As the Phantylia disguised version took the lead in attacking verbally, she couldn't maintain her usual composure, and it devolved into, "I am the real Tingyan. I'm the real Tingyan." Zeus felt like he had heard this dialogue somewhere before. Before Zeus could find the source of this dialogue from his distant memories. Suddenly, Zeus felt his arm being clamped by something soft and elastic like jelly. Turning his head, he saw one Tingyan Phantylia had already come to his side. "Lord Zeus, you were the one who saved this humble girl back then. You should know that I am the real one, right?" As she spoke, this Tingyan Phantylia gave a provocative look at the other Tingyan, as if saying she would not only take her identity but also the man she had her eyes on. Realizing that what was pressing against his arm was Tingyan's proud assets, Zeus's great thunder began to slowly wake up again. Zeus's eyes were fixed intently on those assets. On the other side, seeing Zeus mesmerized by her figure, Tingyan was both happy and angry. Happy that her savior and the man she liked was attracted to her, but angry that another fool was actually provoking her. Seeing Tingyan's dark expression, Phantylia, wearing Tingyan's skin, laughed even more wantonly. If she weren't afraid of being recognized, she probably would have wanted to lean right in front of Tingyan and say, "I've always wanted to see this expression of yours, this expression of jealousy." Tingyan lowered her head. A moment later, she pounced onto Zeus's other arm, tears slightly welling in her eyes, her face flushing with a faint crimson. "Benefactor, I am the real one. Don't be fooled by this wicked woman's tricks." As she spoke, she gently caressed Zeus's chest with hands as soft and white as jade. Her lips moved close to his ear, and the breath from her words brushed against it. That subtle airflow blowing by his ear and the jade-like fingers caressing his chest sent an itchy sensation straight to Zeus's heart. Although his many former wives each had their own style and charm, Zeus had never seen someone who combined seductiveness and purity as perfectly as Tingyan. That soft allure seemed as if it would suck the very marrow from his bones, while her pure aura made him unable to stop. One really couldn't blame King Joe for being obsessed with the fox spirit back then. Such a captivating and pitiable creature made it impossible for anyone to find the resolve to pull away. Seeing Zeus, who had just been interacting intimately with her, suddenly entangled by two fox spirits in the blink of an eye, and seeing him with an expression of bliss as if his soul had wandered beyond the heavens. Hanru also pressed forward, giving full play to her passion and seizing the space directly in front of Zeus. She didn't possess the same insight into the human heart as Tingyan, so she employed the methods of heart and love that Zeus had previously taught her. Despite her expressionless look, the blush on her face and the intensity of her actions created a powerful sense of contrast that made Zeus unable to put her down. Meanwhile, on the other side, Fuzan informed Jing Yuan of the results obtained through the matrix of prescience. Everyone else's gaze, except for Zeus and the three women, turned toward Jing Yuan, the current general of the Shenzhou Luofu. Though it is surprising, it is true that they were not the ones who brought the Stellarn into the Shenzhou, and although Kafka was cleared of suspicion, it was obvious that through the script of Elio, the slave of destiny, she still held much information that the Shenzhou was currently unaware of. Jing Yuan racked his brains to coax some information out of her, even going so far as to invite the Stellarn hunters to be guests at the general's manor. Fu Zan, who was not skilled in such tasks, felt bored for a moment and began looking around. She accidentally caught sight of Zeus in a passionate exchange with the three women. She cursed, Lecher, under her breath, gave a loud, sharp cough, and glared fiercely at Zeus. That cough and glare caused the great thunder that was gradually occupying Zeus's mind to cool down, and his actual brain temporarily returned to control, forcing the three women to stop for the time being. To be honest, Zeus was also curious about the true face of Elio, the leader of the Stellarn hunters. Now that Kafka had been captured, she was a good channel to learn about him. As an existence that integrated almost all the divinities of Olympus, Zeus could use the abilities of other gods with great proficiency. To Kafka, Elio's greatest value was being able to give her the fear she craved. If Zeus could also achieve this, prying something out of this woman's mouth should be no problem. General Jing Yuan, let me try. Perhaps my method will work. Zeus actually possessed the talent for extracting information. Combined with his previously mentioned powerful ability to command lightning, his exquisite craftsmanship, and his close personal relationships with two members of the Genius Society, it seemed to Jing Yuan that if Zeus could marry a wife from the Shenzhou, it would be best to hand over the position of general to him. As for Fu Zan, if he hadn't met Zeus, Jing Yuan might have continued to dangle the general's position, like a carrot to let her gain more experience. Moreover, Fu Zan herself knew she wasn't yet capable of bearing the responsibilities of a general, which was why she obediently accepted the empty promises Jing Yuan made even though she saw through them. Bringing it up to Jing Yuan all these years was merely to state her ambition. I wonder how many more years I can hold on. Speaking of having Zeus marry a Shenzhou wife, Tingyan seems quite interested in him. Why not try to play matchmaker for them? It just so happens that this stellar incident is too big to keep quiet. Although Tingyan is a victim and her years of hard work have essentially gone up in smoke, she will inevitably be implicated. Yukong wanted Tingyan to take over her position at the Sky-Faring Commission, but now, not only is she involved, her own foundation built over many years has almost been wiped out. Even if Yukong wants her to take over, she won't be able to. But if she connects with Zeus and the Astral Express, along with my recommendation, there should still be room for recovery. Jing Yuan, who had stepped aside to watch Zeus's performance, pondered the future of the Shenzhou Luofu after this incident. The position of general didn't necessarily have to be held by a native of the Shenzhou. General Fei Xiao, who was recently promoted, was not a Shenzhou native in her early years. As for Minister Fu, with her personality, she is more than capable of being a good Grand Diviner of the Divination Commission, but the position of general is somewhat inappropriate. As the saying goes, it is easier to move mountains than to change one's nature. What Minister Fu has always lacked for the general's position is not ability, but worldly wisdom. However, after what happened back then, she probably won't change for the rest of her life. Speaking of which, Minister Fu also seems to have never found a partner. The reason is simply that she hasn't found anyone she looks up to. Most who can be treated as equals by her are either quite old or unsuitable. This Mr. Zeus should be one of the very few she looks up to and who is interested in her. Although monogamy is common in the Shenzhou, there is no explicit regulation that one can only marry one wife. If possible, I'll let Minister Fu try as well. If she succeeds, she can help Zeus handle the affairs of the general's manor, which would also fulfill her dream of being a general. Zeus came before Kafka and looked her directly in the eye. Kafka was also curious about what this variable outside of Elio's script was capable of. Everyone, please block your five senses in a moment. Do not be affected by my methods. Everyone listened to Zeus's words and blocked their five senses, but there are always some who are disobedient or so focused on their own affairs that they miss the notice. Besides Kafka, the subject of the technique who didn't block her senses out of curiosity, there was another curious soul, Fu Zan. She wanted to see exactly what Zeus was capable of. Then there were Fantilia and Tingyan, who were still arguing over who was real. Although they had been stopped by what just happened, leaving Tingyan with a sense of shame that made her want to crawl into a hole, she quickly broke free from that feeling when faced with Fantilia's provocation and continued her confrontation, completely failing to notice what Zeus had said. As for Aeon of Nihility Herta, she did not yet know Zeus's true strength. The Suiyong are a race with very powerful mental domains, and her status as an emanator of destruction and a Lord Ravager and her innate racial talents made her disdainful of following Zeus's instructions. Huge pink phantom wings unfolded behind Zeus, with several blue spheres hanging from them. The sides of the wings were connected to dome-shaped structures. What Zeus was about to perform was the authority of Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty. As the Spiritron Information Warfare Attack Craft and Sapient Life Instruction Ship in the former Olympus Interstellar Colonial Fleet, her Spiritron combat capabilities gradually evolved into control over emotions under the blessing of faith. Love and beauty were merely the qualities expressed in her normal state. The authority she truly mastered was bringing to the surface the emotions people craved most in their hearts, and love and beauty are what most people crave. Originally, this part of the authority was covered by Eros in most cases, but in this situation, when the person involved craved not the desire brought by love and beauty, but fear, it was time for its true function to shine. Thou art the lust of the disordered stars. As Zeus activated his authority, the blue spheres on the wings flickered violently, and the dome-shaped structures emitted specific wavelengths. In Kafka's eyes, the feeling Zeus's handsome appearance gave her began to change. The emitted spiritron waves, mixed with the power of authority and the path, acted upon the hearts of Kafka and the three nearby people who had not closed their five senses. Kafka's breathing became rapid and tense, her whole body tightening. But unlike ordinary people facing something fearful, an unprecedented look of enjoyment appeared on Kafka's face. She held her face, which was flushed with the excitement brought by fear, looking at Zeus with both obsession and dread. Is this fear? This feeling of a racing heart, this feeling of tension and excitement, it's truly addictive. That's the end of part 2. Part 3 is coming soon.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and support our channel for more stories.